Those who have been eaten alive by a snake know that snakes only swallow and never refuse a meal. Our protagonist just swallowed a 3-foot-long black mamba, despite its massive size. He endured the sheer disgust of swallowing it only because the global mutation had begun, where 70% of all creatures turned into monsters, and this mamba was no exception. In his previous life, it became a terrifying black python, but by swallowing it before the mutation, he can evolve alongside it. Reborn 3 hours before the disaster, he rushed from his room. He headed immediately for the back mountain, frantically searching for this specific black mamba, for in this life, he is the only one who truly understands the terror it represents. Previously, very few became superpowered warriors with guides, and such warriors only have a chance to awaken a cheat power if there is no mutation present. He had tried so hard back then. He struggled through half a lifetime without ever awakening that power, only to be killed by a mutated creature. So in this life, he decided to take a much more visceral path. 2.5 hours later, we see him spot a pitch-black mamba resting in the shade of a tree, and as he wondered how to swallow it alive, something unexpected happened. A cat's meow echoed from nearby as a large, stout black cat discovered the mamba. Its eyes lit up with predatory interest as it began to creep forward stealthily. When the distance between them was less than a foot, the mamba suddenly lunged, and the cat and snake became a tangled mess of fur and scales until they both tumbled down together. The dizzy mamba tried to flee, but the cat wasn't about to let a delicious, spicy treat escape, delivering several more sharp swipes with its claws, a one-sided fight, to be sure. The mamba was soon battered to the brink of death, and just as the cat stood tall, ready to feast, our protagonist suddenly burst from the bushes and jumped into the fray. The startled black cat bolted several meters away before turning to glare at him, but he ignored the feline entirely, reaching down to grab the dying mamba with his bare hand. He checked the time. It was 4:59, and realized with relief that he had made it just in time, while the cat remained in the distance, staring him down with pure resentment. If not for this biped, the cat would already be enjoying its spicy snack, but he knew the cat wouldn't get the chance, as the clock hit 59 minutes and 30 seconds. The northern lights were about to arrive, and he couldn't let the cat have the mamba for cheap. His heart raced as he prepared to swallow the 3-foot snake whole. With only 20 seconds remaining on the clock, he took one last deep breath during the final countdown, watching the seconds tick away as the moment of truth approached. As the sky began to brighten, he knew the aurora had entered the atmosphere, so he opened his mouth without hesitation to begin the grim task of devouring the creature. He fought back the nausea until he swallowed it whole, feeling the dying mamba writhing in his stomach just as a dazzling, breathtaking aurora swept silently across the world. At that moment, a roar echoed through his body, and the struggling mamba seemed to transform into a serpent of fire, burning within him. He had actually succeeded. Suddenly, a slightly childish voice resonated in his mind. "Master, I am the mamba you consumed. It seems you are a reincarnator, and your past life was far too wild." The voice continued, noting that with such power, it was no wonder he risked everything to consume it. Now, he could even access the serpent's memories. It claimed their past lives were incredibly rich, repeating the sentiment almost in a daze, before promising that control of the body remained entirely his. He wasn't quite sure what to say, but he knew they would be stronger this time, so he decided to name the spirit Xiao Yao. Together, they would be the supreme masters of this life, but their moment of bonding was interrupted by a sudden, distant roar. He looked up to see that the black cat, having absorbed the light of humanity, had transformed into a truly hideous and monstrous creature. A sinister glint flashed in his eyes as the cat lunged, but as Xiao Yao began to consume the monster's essence, he felt a surge of heat within. His cells felt more active than ever, and though he tried his old cultivation methods, he realized he couldn't simply absorb sunlight to grow stronger. In this new reality, one must consume powerful flesh and blood. He had assumed that as a supernatural being, he could just use starlight. However, since he didn't belong to the traditional class of supernatural warriors, he felt no difference in the sunlight, which was a bit of a problem. Xiao Yao spoke again, reminding him once more of how rich and complex their past lives had been. The spirit then urged him toward revenge, bringing up a certain individual from his school days who used to treat him like an animal. It was time to go and kill him, the voice insisted, as the serpent's memories and his own had now become one and the same. Xiao Yao understood perfectly well just how much he loathed that coward, and to be honest, the feeling was entirely mutual. The target in question was a fellow student, the son of a billionaire businessman who acted as if he owned the world. Not only was he wealthy, but he was also a high-ranking figure within a powerful military zone. He knew that while these mysterious powers rarely spread globally all at once, he only had a 3-hour window. A large-scale mutation wouldn't occur just yet, giving him a brief moment of calm before the inevitable storm. By the time he reached the school gates, classes had already ended for the day, and the area was buzzing with activity. We see many students coming and going, completely unaware of the darkness that is about to descend upon their world. He didn't bother going inside. Instead, he waited patiently outside the gates for Lin Yun to finally show his face. He knew that around 5:30, the boy would be heading out to eat with his usual group of wealthy friends. And there we see him waiting at the school gates, his hair turned completely white and his chest bare, looking like a man with nothing left to lose. With a strange tattoo etched across his chest, he immediately became the center of attention for everyone passing by. He watched them, thinking that in just a few hours, they would all have a very good reason to cry. Not long after, he finally spotted the true target of this hunt. The boy walked out of the school surrounded by his rich social circle, chatting and laughing as if he hadn't a care in the world. Seeing this face again, he couldn't help but be flooded with memories of his previous life. He remembered how these wealthy youths had once thrown him to the monsters just to save their own skins. That betrayal had cost him 3 fingers and nearly his life. Naturally, a cruel smirk now began to play across his lips. He walked rapidly toward them, catching the eye of one spoiled young man who saw him approaching. The boy had no intention of moving out of the way and asked, with a sneer, who he thought he was. Lin Yun looked at him with mockery, remarking that good dogs don't block the path and wondering where this freak had come from. Without saying a single word, he stepped forward and gripped Lin Yun directly by the throat with his left hand. The 2 bodyguards were so terrified by the coldness in his gaze that they felt an icy chill run down their spines. They tried to move toward him, but something about his presence made them hesitate, as if they were invisible to his rage. They stopped abruptly in their tracks, and in that same instant, he raised his foot and brought it down with crushing force. Lin Yun let out a hoarse, guttural scream before losing consciousness entirely. Seeing his enemy broken on the ground brought a look of pure satisfaction to his face. After all, even without superpowers in his past life, he had managed to survive 8 years in the Hibbian apocalypse. The darkness in his heart was already deeply rooted, and today, it was finally starting to bloom. One of the bodyguards gritted his teeth and charged toward him, swinging an electric baton with desperate force. A cruel, cold look flashed across his face as he watched the man approach. With a casual flick of his wrist, he struck the guard with the palm of his hand. The bodyguard was sent flying through the air like a kite that had suddenly lost its string. He sailed toward the west, right in front of the students who were watching the scene in utter disbelief. They backed away, terrified, as he told them all to disperse immediately. He knew that only a few of those standing there would manage to survive the next hour. To be honest, he felt that worrying about such people simply wasn't worth his time anymore. After saying those final words, he turned his back on the school and walked away. And then, as the clock struck 6 in the evening, the true end of the world finally descended. We hear the first screams and guttural roars beginning to echo from one city to the next. People trying to escape suddenly collapse, foaming at the mouth before their heads split wide open. A fierce, bloody maw grows from within them, finally swallowing the copper coins they had encountered before. Even the trees, once lush with green leaves, wither and die in a matter of seconds. Grotesque tendrils sprout from the bark, entangling and devouring any unlucky human who happens to pass by. At this very moment, we find him inside an office, preparing for the hunt with a testing stone in hand. He observes the mutations spreading rapidly, noting the high risks and the steady decay of the world around him. He remains focused, standing firm within the house as the chaos of the new era begins to take hold. He questions the path ahead, much like a seasoned warrior preparing for a battle he has already fought once before. The transformation is complete, and the psychological weight of the apocalypse settles over the land. It was at that exact moment that a woman burst through the door, clutching her bags and gasping for air. She slammed the door shut in a frantic rush, and once the bolt was slid home, she collapsed onto the floor. Her entire body was trembling, and her face was a mask of pure, unadulterated despair. She gasped, asking who he was, only then realizing that a stranger was in the president's office alongside 4 monster corpses. He scanned the woman with an indifferent gaze before taking a step and walking calmly toward the door. Seeing this, the woman scrambled away on all 4s, watching him closely while a secret plan began to form in her mind. She wondered if she could use this man as bait to distract the monsters outside while she slipped into the elevator. Her goal was the underground warehouse. After all, she had already betrayed several companions to make it this far. Now, seeing another soul in this room, those same dark thoughts immediately began to resurface. She relied on her beauty, convinced that no man could look at her without becoming completely captivated. But then, quite suddenly, something happened just outside the office door. A series of heavy, violent blows began to rain down against the wood, and through the cracks, the unmistakable sound of guttural roars began to echo into the room. In that instant, the woman's legs gave out entirely, leaving her paralyzed with fear. He ignored her completely, simply telling her to stay close as he reached the door and swung it open. The woman, who had just managed to stand up, collapsed back onto the floor in a heap. Suddenly, 2 insect-like monsters lunged forward, their claws slashing through the air with unnatural speed. His dowel blade cleared its scabbard in a flash of cold light, followed immediately by 2 arcs of dark blood. The heads of both creatures were severed instantly, falling away from their bodies before they could even land. The woman watched this display in total shock, and for the first time, a glimmer of hope sparked in her eyes. She scrambled to her feet and rushed toward him, desperately pleading for him to take her along. He simply looked at her with a cold, detached gaze before turning back toward the door. He scoffed and began to walk away, even as she promised to grant any request he might have in exchange. Begging once more, the woman ran to him and began to discard her clothes, hoping her beauty would be enough. He told her to get out, noting that in this apocalypse, such things were the least valuable currency of all. He stopped her outside the elevator and pressed the button for the ground floor, refusing to offer her any help. He told her he would rather watch her die, and as the elevator reached the first floor, the doors slid open. Immediately, four monsters came into view, waiting just outside the metal doors. Upon seeing someone inside the elevator, the creatures let out a series of excited, hungry roars. They lunged, but he stepped forward and cut them down one by one, as easily as clearing dry weeds. It was effortless, like slicing through fruit, prompting Xiao Yao to call out to him as her master. We see them move on to their next objective, the subjugation of a dangerous underground gang. He knew that, despite his strength, the power of a single person is ultimately limited in this world. The group he intended to conquer was no small threat, boasting 6 or 7 super-martial warriors. He stepped out of the Wantian building and vanished into the night, while Xiao Yao began her feast. As she devoured the corpses of the Jibian monsters, his own hunger began to fade as well. We learn here that whatever Xiao Yao consumes provides the same sustenance to him, as if he had eaten it himself. At this point, he told himself that he might not even qualify as a human being anymore. Ever since he released the twin dragons on his back, even the passing monsters didn't dare to attack him. Instead, they fled in a frantic rush the moment they caught sight of him, which was a wise choice, really. However, even though his hunger had finally vanished, he found that he was still quite thirsty. And so, he decided it was time to look for something to drink. But just then, the sudden roar of intense gunfire echoed from a distant street. Under the cover of the dark night, he vanished into a nearby alleyway. In just a few quick steps, he arrived at the source of all that noise. Near a supermarket entrance, we see 20 or 30 fully armed soldiers firing frantically in every direction. They were facing a constant, relentless flow of approaching monsters. The thunder of the shots and the roars of the creatures merged into a single, chaotic symphony. But against such a horde of mutants, some requiring dozens of bullets just to drop, the odds were not in their favor. To be perfectly honest, these soldiers were starting to look a bit terrified. Suddenly, a sharp, lethal tentacle shot out from the depths of the darkness. It skewered 3 or 4 soldiers in a row before dragging them all back into the shadows. It was clear that far more powerful mutated monsters were lurking in the gloom. The captain, his face grim, hurled 2 hand grenades toward the source of the attack. He followed up with a frantic burst of fire, while inside the supermarket, more than 100 people waited. These survivors huddled together, listening to the screams and the gunfire raging just outside the doors. Their bodies trembled with fear, and just as the soldiers were about to run out of ammunition, the monsters that had been besieging them suddenly froze in their tracks. Then, they simply scattered. One has to wonder what could cause such a sudden retreat. The soldiers asked themselves if an even more terrifying monster was about to join the fray. The artillery soldier, his scalp tingling with a cold numbness, stared intently into that deep darkness. He aimed his weapon with trembling hands, and then, we see hundreds of monsters beginning to shift. They were clearing a path, making the soldiers feel as though they were about to face their ultimate enemy. The hands gripping their rifles were shaking, and to be honest, it was hard to blame them. For an entity to appear and command such immediate respect from so many monsters, one has to wonder, could this be the most powerful boss of them all? However, just a moment later, the soldiers were left completely stunned by what emerged. It wasn't a beast, but a being with a human body, flanked by 2 horrific black dragons rising behind him. Wherever he walked, not a single mutated monster dared to launch an attack. They wondered if this was a monster in human form, or perhaps something else entirely. He told them he was both human and monster, assuring them he meant no harm and only wanted some water. And so, he simply walked through the crowd of monsters, heading directly toward the supermarket. After consuming so many monsters and the dragon's body, he knew that mere bullets could no longer pierce his skin. Consequently, facing 30 aimed weapons didn't bother him. He chose to simply ignore them. Deep down, he knew that if they dared to fire, he would end them all in an instant. It seems that before the mutation, he had already killed a security guard and young Master Lin at the school gates. If that were the case, then this particular lunatic certainly wasn't a typical monster. The captain asked for his name, but he told the man not to bother with such formalities. The only reason he had come there, after all, was to grab a simple bottle of water. He spoke coldly to the soldiers as he continued his calm, steady walk into the supermarket. Xiao Yao realized that while devouring monsters could fill his stomach, it seemed that it left him incredibly thirsty, just as the soldiers explained they were there to rescue someone important. He asked if they intended to interfere, noting he would simply take a bottle of water and leave. He spoke with a small, cold chuckle as he made his way into the supermarket. Inside, the more than 100 survivors watched him with absolute terror in their eyes. He ignored them, as there was nothing between them, and walked straight to the refrigerator. He pulled out a bottle of mineral water and drank it all in a single, long gulp. To be honest, a single bottle of water did absolutely nothing to quench his thirst. It took drinking more than 20 bottles of water, one right after the other, for him to feel better. Finally, he felt some satisfaction, even as the soldiers and survivors stared at him. Their expressions made it clear they felt they were looking at a monster. He only stopped once he felt his thirst was about 70% satisfied. Suddenly, a voice rang out, laughing and shouting that he had finally awakened. Everyone turned to see a tall, thin man staring with excitement at a black nine-pointed star on his palm. He let out a long laugh as, in the blink of an eye, a suit of deep black armor covered his entire body. We see the crowd watching in complete disbelief, wondering what on earth was happening. The man then pointed at Xiao Yao, commanding the inhuman monster to kneel before him. Xiao Yao met his gaze with a cold, somber look, wondering if the man truly intended to try and kill him. He really hadn't expected a mere super warrior, newly awakened, to have the nerve to provoke him. And so, he had finally encountered his very first superpowered warrior. And he comes to kill me immediately. From the moment you walked in, I haven't liked this monster. Everyone step back and let me kill him, the man shouted, as a sword of light suddenly appeared in his hand. What we are seeing here is a superpowered exoskeleton. It provides not only incredible strength, but a defense that is truly incomparable. Beyond that, it even allows the user to summon weapons out of thin air. In his previous life, Xiao Yao had deeply envied these superpowered warriors. He simply used to think that their high-tech exoskeletons were the coolest thing imaginable. But that was in the past. Now, even though he appeared to be made of mere flesh and bone, he was terrifyingly powerful, far beyond a mere poisonous sprout like this man. It seems you don't know what you're facing, the armored man roared, swinging his blade with a red flash. The twin dragons behind Xiao Yao howled and flew forward to meet the strike. In an instant, we see Xiao Yao has already closed the distance, his hand at the armored man's neck. The sheer violence of the scene terrified the onlookers, causing several women to scream in horror. Even Captain Wu Rui found himself holding his breath, stunned by the speed of the exchange. Xiao Yao made it clear he could be their enemy or not, depending entirely on his own whim. With a cold, dismissive smile, he simply turned around and began to walk away. Wu Rui watched him leave, opening his mouth to speak, but ultimately, he just watched him go in silence. The very moment he stepped out of the supermarket, they slammed the iron doors shut behind him. In a way, he had saved them indirectly, as the monsters that had gathered outside were now gone. This was simply because, in the eyes of these Jibian monsters, Xiao Yao was the true predator. To these creatures, he was a fellow being, but one with a terrifyingly high level of life force. He peered into a dark, somber corner, and suddenly, a massive creature emerged from the deep shadows. The monster let out a high-pitched laugh, eyeing him as if he were a delicious dish served on a platter. The tentacles behind it lashed out as fast as bullets, attempting to pierce him through completely. In an instant, his body vanished, and when he reappeared, he was already standing right before the tentacled beast. He raised the sword in his hand, its blade shimmering as if it were coated in a layer of flowing water. The light reflecting off the sword moved like a fleeting shadow. With a single, decisive strike, the monster's entire massive body was sliced clean in half. Xiao Yao, feeling a surge of excitement, approached the fallen creature happily to begin his feast. With every bite he swallowed, he could feel his power increasing, fueled by a current of heat rushing through his body. After consuming the flesh and blood of the monster, his figure quickly vanished into the depths of the night. Meanwhile, at the largest underground collapse in Yun City, a burly man in yellow armor carried a slender woman over his shoulders. "Boss, look who I've brought back," he announced, to which the leader replied, "Well done, second." It turned out he had actually kidnapped Chuan's daughter, a bold move, to say the least. That foolish girl and her father had been a thorn in their side for many years. They decided it was finally time to teach them a lesson, as the Black Dragon Gang had lived under oppression for far too long. For men like these, the end of the world hadn't come a moment too soon. They believed this was their era of kings, where the wealthy merchants who once did as they pleased should simply be eliminated. "Boss, you should just marry the girl and declare yourself king right now," one of them suggested. The leader laughed, suggesting they record the wedding and send the video to Chuan for his personal enjoyment. In Yun City, we find that 3 lunatics have also awakened martial superpowers of their own. They were all laughing with pure enthusiasm, as if asking themselves if anyone truly thought they were easy to intimidate. But right at that moment, despite being tied up, Chu Mingxi's hypermilitary marine armor was suddenly covered in snow. In an instant, her entire body was encased in a sleek, silver marine armor. It was, as we can see, another piece of hypermilitary marine equipment. And just like that, a humanoid monster had broken in and begun its slaughter. The third master of the gang didn't stand a chance. He was killed by her instantly. Just as a henchman was entering the room, a man covered in scars and drenched in blood appeared. He was thrown from the outside like a projectile, crashing into the scene. The expression on the Black Dragon Gang leader's face changed immediately, and who could blame him, really? A set of black tiger armor instantly materialized, covering his entire body for protection. At the same time, the other bosses within the city didn't hesitate for a second. They also activated the hyper-military weapons in their palms, merging them seamlessly with their armor. Their eyes were fixed on the door as a figure strode in, looking over everyone present in the city. The stranger's gaze eventually settled on the silver water machine, standing not far away. He walked calmly toward it, acting as if he didn't even see the men with their fused armor. He seemed completely indifferent to them, or even the potential explosion of the silver water machine itself. He tilted his head back and drank wildly, only setting the bucket down once he had finished every drop. He looked at all the hyper-military warriors present and suggested they should probably work together. Because if they lose, he informed them quite simply, they will only be his servants. Servants, not subordinates. What an incredibly arrogant man he was. They demanded to know if he was human or a monster, but he simply wondered why they talked so much. We see the order given to eliminate him as the 4 fierce gang bosses launched their attack. The assault from the 4 bosses was lightning fast, and in the blink of an eye, a blade slashed toward him. But to his eyes, the movement was as agonizingly slow as a crawling snail. He didn't even bother to dodge. Instead, he simply reached out his hand. With a sharp crack, he caught the glowing blade of light mid-swing. Then, with a fierce kick, his terrifying power shattered the armor of the Black Dragon Gang's 4 bosses. One was sent flying like a cannonball, slamming into the wall with enough force to end his life instantly. He offered a small apology for the death, claiming he hadn't controlled his strength properly. Sensing that the 4 bosses had indeed lost their lives, he turned his gaze to the others, asking if they also wished to experience his power. By now, every person in the room was looking at him with absolute terror. They looked at Chu Mingxi, wondering what she intended to do after seeing her brother killed so easily. He knew that even if they all teamed up, they wouldn't be a match for him. He repeated his earlier demand. They were to become his servants. His patience was running thin, and he gave them exactly 1 minute to decide. One might wonder why he would bother restricting himself with the Black Dragon Gang. The reason was simple. He needed to go out and hunt mutated creatures. But since survival requires water, he naturally needed someone to handle the collection for him. He didn't actually need someone to collect pure water for him. Otherwise, things wouldn't be quite so problematic. He would have already headed to the largest zoo in Yunshan to swallow the Monkey King whole. One might ask, what exactly is the benefit of becoming his subordinate? From this moment forward, he promised them his absolute protection. In exchange, they only needed to focus on one task, collecting pure water for him. The Black Dragon Gang, seeing no other choice, declared they were ready to serve him. Zhao knew there was no escape, so he and the remaining brothers bowed deeply before him. With that settled, his gaze shifted and landed directly on Chu Mingxi. She quickly explained that they had brought her there by force and that she wasn't a member of their gang. He made it clear that it didn't matter who she was, as long as she was standing there. Since she was also a super-armed warrior, he simply told her she would become his subordinate as well. Chu Mingxi felt a wave of bitterness, but she didn't dare doubt the consequences of a refusal. He warned them that if they dared to run, he would find them at the ends of the earth and devour them alive. As he spoke, the twin dragons behind him let out a fierce, terrifying roar. During his first 18 years, he had spent 6 of them living under the thumb of others. But now, the sensation of holding the power of life and death over others had changed everything. He found the feeling to be truly wonderful, an almost indescribable sense of pleasure. Chu Mingxi, assuming these words were directed at her, felt the need to speak up. She immediately expressed her thoughts, addressing him as master and explaining she needed to go home. She begged for his permission, worried for her family now that her super weapons had finally awakened. He agreed that she definitely had to go back and see them. Request approved. He then announced that, from this moment forward, this place would serve as our new headquarters. As long as they could collect enough pure water, he promised not to interfere with their personal freedom. Furthermore, if they ever found themselves in danger, they were told they could contact him at any time. He also suggested that if they lacked the capacity themselves, they should bring in more super-armed warriors. In this post-apocalyptic world, even with an invincible master like him, there are certain realities to face. It is always better to have more people on your side, so she decided it was time to head home first. Chu Mingxi said her piece and left without a single backward glance. And shortly after Chu Mingxi had departed, Zhao stepped forward to share his thoughts. He told his master that he felt she wouldn't return, noting that you can't stop someone who is looking for death. After hearing the response, we see that Zhao's face was filled with a clear sense of envy. He asked his master if he had truly managed to resist the Jibian in such a state. He called him truly incredible, as normally, no one can resist the Jibian transformation. The master simply ordered him to prepare a room, as he wanted to take a shower. Zhao invited his master to follow him, mentioning that the Black Dragon Gang had over 100 members. However, the grim reality was that most of them had already transformed into monsters. In total, there were only 8 super-armed warriors left in their ranks. 2 were now dead, and a few others were still out searching for supplies and had not yet returned. Throughout the entire city, we see the desperate struggle of humans fighting against Jibian monsters. Even a super-armed warrior faces the risk of death if they encounter a true-type Jibian opponent. Among the Jibian monsters, we find there is actually a specific hierarchy of classification. They are categorized as ordinary, type O, and the true type. The ordinary Gibeon monsters can be killed with standard firearms, a small mercy, really. But things become quite difficult if you happen to encounter a typo. The true type, however, is even more terrifying than its predecessors. It has already developed intelligence and can command the ordinary Gibeon creatures at will. One could say a type O Gibeon is like a lord among these twisted creatures. But the malignant type of Gibeon is the undisputed king of all Gibeon life. The wrath of such a king causes millions of corpses to pile up in its wake. And the disaster-class Gibeon monster, the Black Mamba, belongs to this very category. This is the true supreme overlord, an entity without any natural enemies whatsoever. Once a disaster-class Gibeon creature makes its appearance, it represents nothing less than an extinction-level catastrophe for humanity. In his previous life, a shelter with 1 million survivors was utterly destroyed by one of these creatures. As for the super-armed warriors of humanity, he recalled that countless numbers were killed or wounded before they barely managed to repel it. There are, of course, varying levels of strength even among the disaster-class Gibeon. The Black Dragon, to which his fused Black Mamba belongs, is considered the absolute sovereign of them all. It is an existence that truly has no natural enemies in this world. Whether they are other Gibeon creatures or human super-armed warriors, none pose the slightest threat to him. At this very moment, we see more than 10 super-armed warriors clearing the surroundings of the outside world. They are facing Gibeon monsters that seem to attack in a never-ending, constant stream. Among them, leading the charge, is a super-armed warrior whose armor stands out from the rest. It is, in fact, a suit of heavy iron armor, built for endurance rather than speed. He wields a massive halberd, tearing through the crowd of monsters with devastating force. Hardly any Gibeon monster can hope to block his attacks, which, to be honest, is quite a relief for his men. Mayor Lawn, this is not a permanent solution, one of them calls out. There are simply too many monsters, and it is becoming clear they cannot kill them all. The physical strength of the brothers is already beginning to fail them, and exhaustion is setting in. He suggests it would be better to retreat to the underground shelter first. Mingsa. Deep down, the father knew he could only wait so long. He had only come out to clear the monsters near the building. He had been waiting specifically for his daughter to return, but he feared she had already perished in the jaws of a monster. Just as the man in the heavy armor was about to give the final order to retreat, a woman clad in ice and snow armor burst through the darkness of the night, wielding a frozen bow. Each time she drew back her string, she unleashed a volley of ice arrows upon their enemies. Who are you? They wondered, as Mungsa finally managed to fight her way back to her father. Everyone present was wearing super military armor, making it difficult to recognize a friendly face. They had no idea who this newcomer was, which, naturally, prompted the cautious question. She had made her way back very carefully from the underground boxing club. By the time she reached them, Mungsa was feeling more than a little physically exhausted. Have you truly become a super military warrior and returned to us? Her father asked, his voice thick with disbelief. Upon hearing her voice, the man in the heavy iron armor immediately gave the order for his men to retreat. She stayed behind to cover their withdrawal, being the last to enter the underground building of the Chu Bei-Xian group. We see that they had constructed a shelter capable of resisting a nuclear war, a sanctuary designed for thousands to survive. He wondered aloud how long it would take for more than 100 people like them to exhaust their food supplies. Chu Bei-Xian gave his orders. The woman in the flame armor nodded and departed to carry them out. Mungsa, go and see your mother and your sister, he told her, his tone softening for a brief moment. And so, Chu Bei-Xian led his daughter deeper into the depths of the massive underground refuge. I cannot stay here for long, Mungsa explained, as she began to tell him everything that had happened to her. She recounted her journey briefly, and while he found it hard to believe such people existed, he was simply glad she was back. He felt there was no need for a divorce, thinking it truly ungrateful to make his daughter work like a common laborer. He contemplated his power, whispering for the 7 lives to emerge as he considered his next move. Deep down, he knew it was absolutely necessary to attract some truly powerful super-military warriors to their cause. Because even though he was exceptionally strong, the later stages of the ocean would bring many dominant, terrifying creatures. In a one-on-one fight, if his black dragon martial armor were pushed to its limit, he might be forced to flee in shame. Furthermore, he was uncertain about his potential now that he had undergone the fusion with Xiao Yao. He didn't know if his power had decreased or grown, which, naturally, made finding powerful allies even more vital. 7. He is calling you, a voice whispered, as we see 3 people hiding inside the gate pavilion. One of the guards is clad in the formidable Shura armor, standing watch with a silent, menacing intensity. As for the other 2, we see that one of them is equipped with the dark and sleek Black Raven armor. The third one wears the Firebird armor, and together, these 3 are the strongest warriors in this entire high school. She recognizes me, or rather, she recognizes Ishan, the one who awakened the Shura superweapon. She stands there, watching the white-haired man waiting just outside the school gates. His conscience wavers for a moment. After all, they already called out your name, so how could she not recognize you? From the look of things, she shouldn't be a true Jiren monster, at least not yet. Do you want to meet her? He asks, telling the others to wait there while he goes out to receive her. Ishan thinks it over for a second before pushing the door open and heading straight for the school's main entrance. Do you recognize me? Have you actually heard of me before? He asks, curious about his own reputation. He offers a slight smile, wondering aloud if she might bring the school's super warriors to follow his lead. She notes that he isn't a super warrior himself, which makes her wonder how he could possibly be this powerful. In her opinion, this person was simply too absurd to be real, a complete anomaly in their world. Using nothing but raw physical strength, he is capable of taking down those three-headed, six-armed Jiren monsters. She asks again how he can kill them if he isn't a super warrior, unable to wrap her head around it. He points out that her Shura's super weapon has awakened, and in truth, it is already quite formidable. He explains his method. After the Jiren beings die, he carries their remains out into the direct sunlight. This causes the Jiren fruit to grow, and as long as they consume it, they can enhance the abilities of their super weapons. He mentions he must head to the Cloud City Zoo, promising to take them to collect the G fruit when he returns tomorrow. After saying his piece, he doesn't linger. It is already getting late, and time is of the essence. If he allows that Monkey King to evolve to the third stage, things might get complicated, and so, he disappears into the night. Ishan's eyes flash with intrigue as she mutters to herself, wondering exactly what kind of being he truly is. As we watch him move away from the area, it seems every Jiren creature is genuinely terrified of this man. The nearby Jiren creatures have already started to close in again, Master, his companion notes. She wonders why he bothers recruiting so many people when they could easily survive perfectly well on their own. He reminds Xiao Yao that in his previous life, her downfall was her own arrogance and her utter contempt for all living beings. That pride led to her being besieged by the 5 masters of the ocean. Though she killed 2, she barely escaped with her life. The Shura's super weapon Ishan awakened is of the holy class, a calamity-level power, and a true pillar for humanity's future. While she doesn't quite compare to her past self yet, she is far more than just a common helper at this stage. Suddenly, a Jiren monster blocks his path, though most others flee from him like rabbits spotting a tiger. This particular creature isn't a typical monster, but a white fox, standing even larger than a massive water buffalo. With its 9 tails, he recognizes the white fox as a rare delicacy of lineage, a prize for the black dragon. Save me! A sudden burst of light erupts from the white fox standing directly before him. To his surprise, she transforms into a woman with a tail. In her mind, this was her only hope. She believes that by taking this form, she has become a kindred spirit to the dragon, a being like himself. And so, following that logic, she chose to manifest in a human shape to seek his protection. Brother, I advise you not to meddle in things that don't concern you, a voice warns from the shadows. The speaker, a king, demands the fox for himself, suggesting they both just live and let live if he leaves now. He simply licks his lips, thinking it would be a terrible shame not to devour such a challenger instead. It turns out this rat king has already reached level 3, which is quite impressive for this stage. Little ones, attack, the king commands, while the fox asks the black dragon to leave these small mice to her. She urges him to go kill the rat king, promising that once the deed is done, she will follow him anywhere. The white fox stood her ground, facing the swarming multitude of rats as they began their approach. The black dragon king only had 1 fox to worry about, so there was really no need to fight quite so hard, was there? He wondered why there was so much nonsense being spoken and simply challenged his opponent to come and fight. With a powerful strike, he stomped the ground and charged forward with incredible speed. He unsheathed the katana in his hand, with the violent essence of the black dragon clinging to the blade. Seeking his own demise, the Rat King let out a long shriek, as his pride wouldn't allow him to retreat in such shame. And so, we see a dragon and a rat collide with one another in a clash of pure power. The blade and the rat's claws met, producing the sharp, ringing sound of metal striking metal. In the first round, the Rat King was thrown back several meters, leaving 2 deep sword gashes across his chest. He let out a low roar, channeling the full strength of the black dragon's power from within his body. In a single second, he unleashed 5 rapid slashes. Instantly, 5 violent streaks of sword light sliced through the air toward his target. The Rat King cursed under his breath as he twisted his body to resist the onslaught. At that exact moment, he charged once again, leading with his blade. The Rat King ignored his mounting injuries, his mind now focused entirely on finding a way to escape. Meanwhile, the White Fox, who was busy eliminating the remaining rat monsters, kept a close eye on the 2 of them. She considered leaving, but after a moment's thought, she decided to stay right where she was. She realized that if she fled while the Black Dragon fought her battle, he would likely show her no mercy the next time they met. And to be perfectly honest, making an enemy of someone that terrifying is never a very smart move. Just as the White Fox finished clearing out the rat monsters, a mysterious figure approached rapidly through the night. His aura felt significantly stronger than before, and after devouring the Rat King, he realized he had finally reached level 3. The White Fox admitted she had only felt a sense of dread, honestly believing that her Black Dragon brother had abandoned her. He hadn't hesitated for a second to risk his life to save her, a gesture that left her deeply moved. As she ran off, he watched her closely, finding himself thinking that this fox demon was actually quite charming. His companion noted that his thoughts were becoming rather wicked, which, to be fair, wasn't entirely unexpected. He told himself it wasn't his own nature at work, but rather the legendary lustful genes of the dragon lineage taking over. Curiously, he felt absolutely nothing for human women anymore. And yet, looking at this monster-like creature, he felt a strange, undeniable impulse. Naturally, he decided to place the blame for these feelings squarely on Xiao Yao. Xiao Yao asked if he had no shame, pointing out that he only ever knew how to blame his big brother, the Black Dragon. She decided to follow him from then on, and so he told her to come along as they headed toward a new destination. The white fox bit her lip nervously, but followed closely behind him as they set off. As the two of them moved further and further away from the scene of the battle, the white fox began to realize that she might have been overthinking the entire situation. She quickly took a few steps forward, closing the distance until she was walking right by his side. She looked up and asked where exactly they were going, calling him her big brother, the Black Dragon. He felt they needed to consume more power immediately, as hunting small fry wouldn't help them improve at all. He knew of a zoo nearby where at least 30 blood spirit iron monkeys lived, including a high-level king among them. His plan was to devour them first, and he began to run with incredible speed, nearly breaking the sound barrier. He was determined that by the end of this night, they would both become much stronger. But, Big Brother Black Dragon, she said, that place has actually been turned into a massive shelter. He didn't quite know how to react for a moment when he heard this unexpected news. From what he knew, no one should have been building a sanctuary in that particular zoo. She admitted she didn't understand it either, having only just come from that direction herself. She described a fortress-like refuge, with an electrical grid covering the sky and walls reaching 200 meters high. It seemed impossible to enter, leading him to wonder if someone else had been reborn with vast financial resources. When we see the original zoo, we find it has indeed been transformed into a steel fortress with massive walls. He feared that even monsters at level 6 or 7 would find it impossible to penetrate such a defense. It was a grand stronghold, covering an area of approximately 50,000 square meters. A project like this must have cost tens of billions, a staggering sum, to be sure. He had to admit, humans really are quite amazing when they put their minds to something. This shelter was, quite simply, a structural masterpiece. Outside the walls, thousands of monsters circled the perimeter, howling without rest. They tried to climb, but the electrified plates on the walls left them charred on the outside and tender within. Birds circled the sky above, while heavy monsters tried to rush in, only to be blocked by the power grid. Wondering who could be behind this, he quickly pulled his mobile phone out of his storage. He checked the device and looked at the time, only to discover that there was actually a working internet connection. It appeared to be a satellite network, a mystery that he found incredibly strange given the circumstances. He wondered if the owner of the shelter had prepared an emergency mode for the Empire well in advance. It was the only way a satellite network could have been activated so quickly, after all. Suddenly, we see hundreds of fighter jets appearing just outside the city limits. The escorts enter Cloud City and immediately activate their thermal imaging radar. Under the glow of thermal imaging, it becomes quite easy to distinguish the humans from the monsters. The combat fleet carefully avoids the survivor settlements as they move into position. They begin their bombardment, but the fleet is soon swarmed by flying mutant monsters. An absolute avalanche of monsters flings itself desperately at the fleet. For a moment, the sky is filled with flashes of fire in every direction. Soon, fighter jets begin to fall, and he realizes things are playing out differently than in his previous life. It seems this timeline has one more reborn soul than before, so he decides to check his phone. He begins searching for any videos regarding the Cloud City Zoo shelter. Almost immediately, several related videos appear on his screen. He finds a video from 2 months ago, showing Mukinsu, the president of the Jinju Group, sparing no expense. After spending a staggering 100 billion to buy the city's largest zoo, he built this massive refuge in just 2 months. This Mukinsu is likely a reborn soul as well, one who returned 2 months earlier than our protagonist. Furthermore, it seems he warned the Empire about the coming Jibian mode. That would certainly explain why the satellite network was activated with such impressive speed. Brother Black Dragon, she asks, do you actually have a human phone? He doesn't bother to answer her, his attention entirely fixed on the videos. Sure enough, he finds the official news bulletin recently released by the Empire. The message is clear. The Jibian mode has descended upon them with sudden, brutal force. Humanity has suffered devastating losses, and the message is clear. If you are still alive, hide as best you can and wait for the Imperial Army to rescue you. In this Jibian mode, we see that one group after another of beings with superpowers has begun to awaken among the human population. The Empire is pleading with these superpowered individuals to join the rescue operations and help save more of our future human companions. He watches these videos with an expressionless face, not letting himself worry too much about the situation. Deep down, he knows that even if he has been reborn, he cannot change the nature of his own transformation. In his previous life, he was able to awaken superpowers of his own. And so, in this life, he is certain he will be able to awaken them once again. After all, if he couldn't awaken them even after being reborn, it would simply be impossible to awaken at all. In his past life, Mukinsu awakened the golden superpower. It should be the same this time around. The only real difference is that he built a shelter. He doesn't believe Mukinsu could be as crazy as he is, willing to devour other powerful things. Even if he knew the secret, it's impossible for him to possess the Black Dragon Wall, which is the absolute ceiling of combat power. Brother Black Dragon, let's go, she says, knowing they can't enter the shelter if they want to grow stronger by devouring. Just as Bayu finishes speaking, the heavy iron door of the refuge swings open with a thunderous roar. Finally, more than 100 supernull individuals come charging out from the inside. This group is incredibly powerful. As soon as they rush out, they begin to massacre the Gebian creatures waiting outside. Are these truly the supernull people of humanity? Bayu looks at one particularly hateful individual among them. The 100 or so supernull people speak with a sense of finality. What exactly is happening here? With a touch of curiosity, Huihu watches the scene unfold in silence. He remains silent as we watch that group of supernull individuals finish clearing out the monsters lurking outside the shelter. One after another, they began to transport the monster carcasses back inside. Why on earth would they want to bring those corpses back with them? It's a fair question. Bayu was truly perplexed, but Hugh understood perfectly. He was now betting that Mukinsu was a reborn soul as well. There is no doubt they are bringing those bodies back to see if they can successfully plant a Gebian tree. How interesting. Huihu allowed a dark, wicked smile to cross his face. It was time to go, to devour and grow stronger. He knew that when dawn arrived, an even more tragic slaughter would be waiting for them. Tomorrow, when the sun shines upon the earth, many Gebian trees will begin to grow. Touching the Gebian fruit is the goal, whether for the supernull people or for Huihu and his companions. After all, these fruits are the greatest resources available to increase one's strength. He knows this, and deep down, he is certain Mukinsu knows it too. There are so many supernull individuals gathered in this one shelter. It is undoubtedly Mukinsu's doing, having recruited them all before the Gebian apocalypse even began. At that very moment, we see a beautiful woman with a voluptuous figure sitting on a sofa in a tight-fitting dress. This exquisite woman, with a delicate face and an elegant temperament, is currently busy taking a phone call. Everything is going well, the voice says, noting that she has already recruited many supernull people under her command. The caller asks if she can send them to join the Imperial Army's rescue operations. The voice on the other end of the line was deep, thick, and heavy with authority. Of course, that is no problem, she replies. She will send someone to help them immediately. Mukinsu agreed, quite cheerfully. Well then, that is how things will stand for now. Contact me at any time if you need anything, the voice concluded. Neighbor, let's talk, she said, before finally hanging up the call. I'm back. And right at that moment, we see Bisu enter the room in a hurry. If this woman dressed in the Suzaku armor is indeed Jiho, she will surely recognize her. Suzaku, after all, was one of humanity's most important elites in her previous life. She hadn't expected Mukinsu to recruit her quite so early in the game. So how did it go? Did you find the Black Dragon? Mukinsu asked the newcomer in a low, hushed voice. As a reborn soul, aside from Jiho, no one understands the terror of the Black Dragon better than she does. If it cannot be eliminated while it is still weak, it will be impossible to deal with in the future. Zahoniu shook his head. Boss, I searched the entire school and all the surrounding areas. I didn't see any Black Dragon, but on my way back, I heard a reserve unit encountered a man with 2 of them. I don't know if the Black Dragon transformed. It does have the ability to change its shape. Mukinsu was visibly shocked to hear this. It has already devoured its way to the 3rd level so quickly? As far as she knew, all Gebian creatures of evil spirit level or higher can shift forms after reaching that stage. So the Gebian creatures can actually change their appearance as well. Zahoniu was surprised by this revelation. Gebian creatures are divided into common, true race, fierce race, evil race, and calamity. An evil race level creature can transform after reaching the 3rd level, Mukinsu sighed, explaining the grim reality. In the end, she realized with a heavy heart that it was already far too late. As one might expect, in the midst of the Gebian apocalypse, the strongest creatures are always the most unpredictable. Suddenly, a chime rings out. It is Mukinsu's phone. The chief of the neighboring district has sent a video along with a message. Chief Mu, have you ever seen these 2 Gebian creatures before? He asks. Are they actually human, or are they Gebian creatures? Curious, Mukinsu opens the file to see what has caused such a stir. In the video, we see a young man with white hair accompanied by 2 others, a true spirit Black Dragon man and a woman with 9 foxtails. They are shown massacring 10 superpower users with fierce and utterly ruthless methods, killing nearly 1 person with every single blow. Even the nearby Gebian creatures flee in terror wherever they go. Boss, the person the reserve team captain was talking about is this man in the video. Upon seeing this, Zahoniu speaks up immediately, but Mukinsu only frowns slightly. The Black Dragon in her memory was incredibly arrogant. It would never stoop to taking a human form. Feeling doubtful, she asks the neighboring chief. That fox must be a Gebian creature. But as for the white-haired man and his lineage, I am simply not sure. That white-haired man, he is the one who murdered my grandson. He appeared just after the aurora swept across the new southern continent. The neighboring chief responds in a very low, somber voice. Makinsu can only gasp, what? The aurora appeared not long ago, and this white-haired man appeared right along with it. Makinsu speaks with visible surprise as she processes this unsettling news. At 5:30 in the afternoon, he appeared at the school gates and brutally murdered my grandson. Chief Mu, I am asking you to kill her, regardless of whether she is a monster or a person. It is impossible to kill her right now. Sending more superpower users would be a suicide mission. Wait a few days and watch her, Makinsu replied, noting that Gibian creatures can upgrade by devouring. But your superpower users need to absorb sunlight to cultivate or consume Gibian fruits. Fine, then I will leave it to you. The Cloud City satellite will track her as much as possible. A creature of that nature truly should be eliminated as soon as possible. After saying this, Makinsu continued watching the video, quietly murmuring to herself. Is that black dragon really evolving so quickly? To be honest, it seems almost impossible. He can only maintain a human form for half an hour at a time. Makinsu simply doesn't believe such a thing is possible. There must be something suspicious about it. Boss, what is the difference between them and the demons of legend? These Gibian creatures can actually transform themselves into humans. To Zuhanyu, the whole situation seems truly magical, or perhaps, more accurately, terrifying. Gibian creatures of the evil seed and disaster levels are indeed indistinguishable from demons. Makinsu sighed softly and remarked that if humans do not unite now, they will eventually head toward extinction. On the ocean warships and across the new southern continent, the number of Gibian creatures is far greater than what humanity can currently resist. Makinsu realized that even with a second chance at life, it seemed she couldn't change everything. She could only ensure the Empire was prepared much sooner than before. To minimize casualties, since they possess human intelligence, couldn't we cooperate with them? Zuhanyu noted that, regardless of the circumstances, these Gibian creatures only devour one another. He believed they could try to find evil species or disaster-level Gibian creatures to form an alliance. To be honest, she felt the same way, and Makinsu's eyes sparkled with a sudden realization. In fact, she already had a partner in mind with whom she could potentially cooperate. Chapter 13. Since you don't know how to appreciate what you have, then you must simply die. It was 5 in the morning, and the first light of dawn was just about to break. At the underground boxing ring, Zhao, Zanfeng, Lizzie, Dintian, and Gu Xiao had gathered with their new recruits. They had already returned from their night mission, bringing back the resources they managed to find. Most of it was pure water, and fortunately, they hadn't encountered any terrifying masters this time. Boss, are we really going to keep following that monster? Dintian, who hadn't yet witnessed the horror of that same trick repeated, spoke up reluctantly. Tanwan's expression turned fierce as he asked what else they could possibly do. He even suggested that when the creature returned, they should all join forces to kill it. If you want to kill him, do it yourselves, but don't drag me to my death with you. Zhao flashed a mocking smile, making it clear he had no intention of becoming the man's enemy. He hoped they weren't too dissatisfied, but compared to him, these so-called super dancers were like ants. Is he truly that powerful? Gu Xiao asked, looking toward the boss for some kind of confirmation. That monstrous man is just so terrifying, Zanfeng added, his voice trembling with hesitation. Lizzie concluded that he wasn't just powerful, he was, quite frankly, terrifyingly strong. Tanwan lit a cigarette and took a deep breath, remarking that, since this was the situation they were in, then they should probably stop talking about killing their opponent altogether. If he truly is that great, following him might actually keep us much safer, he reasoned. Gu Xiao added thoughtfully that the Yo Recurso Sanudo group had already taken action and was summoning all the dancers. He wasn't sure how many would respond, but having such a powerful boss felt like a good thing. Zhao nodded in agreement, noting that joining the geolocation group was their current path. However, he was certain of one thing. He wouldn't let them control them, no matter what happened. He didn't dare betray Zhu and Zhu, not just because the man was a monster, but because he was powerful. Besides, the man knew a great deal, and being with such an entity provided a rare sense of peace. As they were chatting, the door to the lounge where they were gathered suddenly swung open from the outside. At the sound of the door, everyone turned their heads in unison to see who it was. Zhu and Zhu walked in quickly, accompanied by the soft sound of a white fox following behind. Master, seeing who had returned, Zhao brightened up and stepped forward to greet him immediately. The others followed his lead one after another, their eyes fixed intently on Zhu and Zhu. At the same time, they couldn't help but stare at the white fox trailing behind him. The eunuch, meanwhile, silently acknowledged his master in his own way. The white fox looked at these humans with superpowers, observing them with a keen, predatory interest. Deep down, she felt a great sense of doubt, finding it difficult to understand this Black Dragon King. How could he be so close to humans? These people were even calling him their master. Zhao and the others stared back at the white fox, their expressions revealing a mix of curiosity and caution. The white fox watched him, her suspicions regarding her master's true identity growing with every passing second. Could he truly be a black dragon in human form? It seemed almost impossible to believe. Zhu gave them a slight, distracted nod before his gaze settled on the pure water sitting on the floor nearby. He walked over and hoisted a barrel, drinking deeply as if he hadn't seen water in days. Only after draining 3 entire barrels did Ju finally feel a sense of satisfaction. As he set the plastic barrel down, he noticed that while 3 new superpowered individuals had arrived, the woman from before was missing. He asked after her coldly, and Zao stepped forward to explain that she hadn't returned yet. However, Zao knew exactly who she was: Chu Minzi, the daughter of the Shinsen Group's president, Chu Beixian. Ju ordered him to make contact immediately, declaring that if she wasn't back in half an hour, he would kill her. He then sat on a nearby sofa and pulled out a cigarette, looking perfectly composed. Seeing this, Zao quickly produced a lighter, ever the attentive subordinate. He stepped forward to light it for him, a small gesture of respect for such a dangerous man. Zao mentioned that, as luck would have it, he actually had Chu Beixian's contact information on WeChat. He sent a message to the president immediately, explaining the situation without wasting a single moment. A moment later, the phone chimed. Chu Beixian's reply was short and ominous: "Wait to die." Zao reported the message to his master, noting that Chu Beixian had told them all to prepare for their end. With a grim expression, Zao turned the screen toward Ju, showing him the man's arrogant location pin. There was still an hour left before dawn, and Ju decided it was time to deal with them once and for all. He had given them a chance, but since they didn't know how to appreciate it, only death remained for them. The location was set for the Shinsen building, and he ordered Baigu to take the others to Yuyuan High School. "Gather Hizen and the others," he commanded. "I am going to meet this Chu Beixian myself." With that, Ju stood up and headed out, intending to meet them at the Shinsen Group headquarters. Now, we might wonder why he chose Baigu to lead the others. It was because without this supreme evil spirit's protection, even the super dancers outside would find it nearly impossible to move through the city. There were simply too many Jibian monsters roaming the streets at this hour. "Follow me, everyone," Baigu said, her eyes as enchanting as autumn waters as she looked over these human super dancers. She spoke faintly, clearly harboring no positive feelings toward humanity in general. To be honest, she wasn't alone. Nearly all those transformed into Jibian animals felt the same. They were deeply hostile toward humans. "Zao, stay behind to defend this place," she ordered. "The rest of you, let's go." And so, Zao followed along with the rest of the crowd. Imagine the scene: a group of humans in high-tech superdancer armor following a charming woman with 9 foxtails. It was an extremely strange sight, even for this new world. "Sister Baigu," Zao began tentatively, "how exactly did you meet the master?" He asked as if it were a casual thought, though he was burning with curiosity. "We only just met," she replied coolly. "But what about all of you? How could Brother Alan have possibly taken an interest in people like you?" She called them weak ants, her words dripping with a disdain that was hard to miss. In her eyes, these so-called super dancers were nothing. She could kill them with a single blow. She certainly wouldn't need a second one, which tells you everything you need to know about her power. Hearing such contemptuous words, Dentian, Tan Wan, and the others couldn't help but frown in frustration. But as they soon realized, after leaving the underground airport, the nearby Jibian creatures were everywhere. To her, they were no different from ants. Meanwhile, we moved to the Shinsen building. Deep inside the underground shelter, we find ourselves in Chu Beixian's study. "Brother Chu, my shelter here is absolutely secure," a voice suggested over the line. "Why not bring your sister-in-law and the others so we can join forces in this end of the world? It would certainly be a considerable force." Chu Beixian was busy answering this phone call. The person on the other end was Mu Jinxue. The iron extraction superdance Chu Beixian awakened is holy level. If she could bring him in, Mu Jinxue's shelter would gain a high-level combat powerhouse. Chu Beixian thought for a moment. To be honest, he wanted to take his family and subordinates there, but the outside was crawling with creatures. It was simply too difficult. He also knew that staying here for a long time wasn't sustainable. He realized it wasn't a decision to be made lightly. Mu Jinxue's smiling voice rang out, assuring him that it was quite simple to arrange. "I will have Zuko lead 50 yellow-rank super martial warriors to rush over and escort you. How does that sound? If you can make it here, it would be for the best. I will bring my people there together." Chu Beixian really had no reason to refuse such a good offer. He knew exactly how safe and solid the shelter Mu Jinxue had built really was. Most importantly, it would mean living on the surface again and feeling the sun. He longed to breathe fresh air. "Fine, if there are no surprises. Zuko should be able to arrive with his men in about an hour. We welcome you in advance, Brother Chu," she concluded warmly. Chapter 14. Catastrophe descends upon the underground shelter of the Shinsen Group on Min Island. "Father, I've thought about it over and over, and I feel like I still can't stay here." Chu Beixian had just finished his call with Mu Jinxue when Chu Mengzi knocked, biting her lip nervously as she spoke. Our story continues as Chu Beixian frowned deeply upon hearing his daughter's words. "Don't be foolish," he replied. "You must stay here and do as you're told. We will be moving to the Tadayama shelter immediately," he added, leaving no room for argument. Chu Mengzi thought about it for a moment and simply nodded her head. "All right," she said, and with that, she quietly turned and left the study. However, as we might have guessed, she had no intention of listening to her father's orders. After leaving the study, she began to sneak away, moving through the shadows of the shelter. Deep down, she didn't want to bring a disaster upon her family because of her own presence. This was the final decision she had reached after agonizing over it for several hours. It wasn't until she stepped into the elevator that Chu Mingzi's racing heart finally began to steady. She felt a bit calmer as she reached the surface and stepped out of the elevator car. Suddenly, a violent, bone-chilling roar echoed from the world outside. Hearing the sound, Chu Mingzi immediately activated her super warrior abilities. Her armor materialized to cover her body as she stepped out to see what was happening. She stood there, frozen in place by the sight unfolding before her eyes. Chu Mingzi was suddenly very glad she had made her decision, as she saw a giant three-headed python over 20 meters long. At that moment, He Hui was already there, continuously hacking at the three heads as boiling blood splashed everywhere. The dragons behind him began their feast, and we see them devouring everything in sight. Chu Mingzi shot out of the shelter as fast as an arrow, letting out a startled cry. He Hui looked up at her and simply said, "I thought you weren't coming." He explained that on his way home, he encountered so many mutated creatures he had to fight his way back, eventually falling asleep from exhaustion. Upon waking, his first thought was to find her, while Chu Mingzi, still conflicted after her hours of agonizing, didn't dare tell him the truth. When she asked why he had come, he mocked her, saying he came to kill her, though he might spare her if she brought her father to him. Chu Mingzi was terrified, wondering what her father could have said to provoke him. He Hui wanted to see if the man truly had the skills he claimed. Being quick-tongued with a vengeful man like him always carries a price, and she found herself desperately begging for mercy on her father's behalf. Overwhelmed with pain and fear, she knelt, insisting her father was a powerful warrior who could become a valuable asset to him. He Hui noted coldly that her father's arrogance made that unlikely, but if he was willing to follow, things would be easy. If not, he would have to die. Feeling deeply depressed, Chu Mingzi promised she would convince him and hurried back to the shelter. He Hui didn't follow. Instead, he lit a cigarette and gazed toward Yun City and the Fanyu research base, where the great black and white cat resided. He muttered to himself that it was a shame about that cat, a national treasure, and that its nanny was still protecting it even after the disaster. Meanwhile, we learned that Mu Jinxue had already contacted that very nanny over 20 minutes ago, well ahead of schedule. She had secured the contact info, realizing that having a disaster-level creature as an ally would make seizing Jibian fruit much less dangerous in the future. This Jibian fruit is a rare prize, and having a disaster-level black and white cat on their side would change everything for their group. Mu Jinxue explained to Aunt Zan that she was cooperating with the Empire to protect the people, and that bringing Min Bao along would serve that noble purpose. The nanny, hearing that even Mu Laovan had given the word, agreed to bring Min Bao and the 100 survivors under her care. Zanli finally accepted the offer, and Mu Jinxue felt a wave of relief knowing they were finally coming to join them. She instructed them to head to the Shinsen group first to pick up more survivors, as traveling with Min Bao would ensure everyone's safety. In various parts of Yun City, Jibian trees will soon begin to grow, each bearing between 1,000 and 2,000 fruits. Securing even one of them right now would be quite a feat. Outside the Shinsen group building, He Hui waited past 7 or 8 other structures until Chu Mingzi finally emerged alone, notably without her super warrior armor. Her eyes were slightly red, as if she had been crying, and seeing her alone, He Hui easily guessed what had happened as she begged him to spare her father's life. She promised that from now on, her life would belong to him. Chu Mingzi looked at He Hui, her delicate face set with a newfound, desperate firmness. He Hui looked at her coldly and warned that if she ever dared to become his enemy, he would tear her head off with his own hands. A charming sentiment, to be sure. Chu Mingzi thanked him softly, realizing her father no longer saw her as a daughter. This plea was the final thing she could do for him, given the power of the man before her. She didn't want to die alongside her father, so she did the only thing she could, beg He Hui for mercy. Just then, the sound of approaching vehicles echoed down the street. Moments later, 2 large buses caught their attention, slowing to a halt directly in front of the Shinsen building. Perched atop the lead bus was a boy of about 11 or 12, dressed in black and wearing black and white cat ears on his head, a rather unusual sight in this wasteland. He Hui studied the boy with the cat ears, forming his own theories about the child's identity, while the boy evaluated He Hui in return, sensing a heavy pressure from him. We see that while both are at the early stage of 3 connections, there is a clear difference in their standing. He Hui is a supreme calamity, whereas the boy, at most, is merely the best among the standard calamity group. "Hello, big brother," Min Bao said with a smile. Greeting He Hui, who had no immediate plans to attack, the boy was asked why he was there. He explained his nanny sent him to collect survivors so they could reach a shelter together. Min Bao is quite innocent, hiding nothing, and when He Hui asked if he was there for the Shinsen group people, the boy simply nodded his head. He Hui warned Min Bao not to become his enemy in the future, or he would kill and devour him, before turning to leave with Chu Mingzi. And so begins a new chapter. As Min Bao watched them depart, a woman stepped off the bus. She wasn't exactly a beauty, but she had a face that was very pleasant to look at. She approached Mamba and asked curiously if that white-haired man with blood-red eyes was of his same species, to which the boy replied that he was a terrifying existence. Minbao nodded seriously, admitting he was no match for him. Hearing this, Zhongli wondered why, if they were the same species, the man still kept a human by his side. Minbao shook his head, unsure of the reason, but decided he wouldn't make an enemy of him. Since the man showed no hostility, there was no need for conflict. Zhongli nodded and took out her phone to contact Chu Bishuan to bring the people out, while from a nearby tall building, He Hui watched them closely. As for that boy, Minbao, Chu Mingzi wondered if he was of the same species. With her scalp tingling, she asked in a low voice, genuinely curious about this person. She remembered the violence he had displayed at the school gates, and she couldn't help but wonder if he was human or a Jibian creature. Do you see me as a monster? He Hui asked her calmly. I am a person just like you, and I am even your classmate, he added. Chu Mingzi listened, feeling more confused by the second, though she didn't dare ask anything else. Suddenly, the phone in He Hui's pocket buzzed with a message. He pulled it out to find a text from Zhao. Master, bad news, it read. On the road, we encountered a strange Jibian creature, but you cannot defeat it with strength alone, and is about to be forced back into his original form. A strange Jibian creature, indeed. He Hui's gaze sharpened as he processed this. He wondered if such terrifying creatures were already appearing so soon in this apocalypse. We see that among all the horrors of this new world, the Jibian animals are often the most unpredictable, driven by instincts that have become far more aggressive and complex. In this broken society, these creatures are no longer just animals. They have become something far more dangerous, and for those on the surface, they represent a constant, lethal threat. After reading the message, He Hui turned to Chu Mingzi and told her that she and her father should head to the Maquinsu shelter first. He gave her his contact information, and then, moving with incredible speed, he vanished into the darkness, leaving her to wonder what kind of monster could cause him such concern. Chu Mingzi hesitated for a moment before admitting bitterly that she would have to return and apologize to her father. Meanwhile, about 10 kilometers away from the Shinsen group, on a street where no ordinary Jibian creature dared to tread, waves of chilling laughter echoed constantly from every direction. Zhao, Baiyu, and their company, a total of 23 super warriors, were now down to only 15, standing back-to-back in a desperate circle. They gripped their weapons tightly, staring in terror at the surrounding shadows. This monster appeared and disappeared like a ghost, taking one of their brothers with every strike. They cursed this apocalypse, wondering why, even as super warriors capable of summoning powerful armor, they remained so incredibly vulnerable. One student cried out that he didn't want to die, despite their advanced armor. It was clear that absolute terror had taken hold of the group. Their hands shook as they held their weapons, the fear pushing them to the very edge of a total mental collapse. Zhao, fed up with the cowardice and the trembling of the students, reprimanded them loudly, telling them that fear would only make them die faster. However, Baiyu defended them, noting that against such an opponent, anyone would feel despair. He had already transformed into his fox form, his buffalo-sized body covered in blood. With his breath growing weak, they could only pray for He Hui to arrive soon. The presence in the darkness felt truly sinister, as if it were merely playing with its prey. He had only survived this long thanks to the protection of his subordinates. At this moment, a strange laughter and a dark shadow began to circle the barrier. Suddenly, a super warrior student was snatched by the shadow, vanishing into the blackness while screaming for his life, begging not to be eaten. A series of wretched, soul-piercing screams echoed from the dark. The sound, as if he had seen something truly massive and terrifying, chilled everyone to the bone. Finally, one of the super warriors reached his breaking point, unable to endure this psychological torture for a single second longer. He cried out and fled from the safety of the crowd, but as soon as he vanished into the darkness, those same heart-wrenching screams returned. A sharp screech followed, accompanied by a series of truly wicked, mocking laughs. It was a monstrous, hair-raising sound. This beast clearly wanted them to be completely consumed by their own boundless fear. Hearing that laughter echoing in his ears, Zhao felt a freezing sensation wash over him. To be honest, he was terrified. A cold shiver ran down his spine as he realized he might be the next victim. Where was the Black Dragon, his elder brother? Why hadn't he arrived yet? Even the cunning members of the group, whose names Zhao didn't even know, were trembling uncontrollably now. Just like the White Fox, they all looked to Zhao as their elder brother Black Dragon for some kind of hope. We see that the Shinsen Group headquarters is more than 10 kilometers away from this nightmare. At the master's top speed, they told themselves he should be arriving any moment now. Zhao's teeth chattered, fearing that even if the master arrived, he might be no match for the monster lurking in the shadows. As soon as he voiced that doubt, the heavy atmosphere among the survivors became even more suffocating. He spoke too soon. Moments later, the Black Shadow returned to claim another reward from the group. From the middle of the crowd, another superpowered warrior was snatched away in the blink of an eye. The terrifying part was that they couldn't even catch a glimpse of what the Black Shadow actually looked like. Over the next 3 or 4 minutes, 4 more superpowered warriors were dragged into the abyss by the shadow. Of the 23 who were present when Bayou arrived, only 12 remained standing on the scene. A grim tally indeed. What should they do? What could they do? Deep down, they didn't want to die, and they wondered who would save them. Some of the warriors finally broke down, collapsing to the ground in a fit of loud, desperate weeping. They were so utterly defeated that they couldn't even maintain their superpowered armor anymore. An unknown liquid began to flow from between their legs, a silent testament to their absolute terror. Zao and the others were equally desperate. In that moment, their bodies began to tremble uncontrollably. And then, just as things seemed most dire, a violent dragon's roar echoed from the distant street. The sound spread with a thunderous crash, accompanied by a sudden, powerful gust of wind. The master finally arrived. His scarlet pupils stared fixedly into the darkness, and we follow his gaze. Deep within that shadows, a pair of crimson eyes suddenly lit up in response. Upon seeing this, Zao and the others felt an inexplicable sense of security wash over them. The paralyzing fear in their hearts began to recede, vanishing like a retreating tide. In their opinion, as long as the master was there, everything would be perfectly fine. And as our story pauses for a moment, we ask for your support through likes and subscriptions. We are infinitely grateful as we begin Chapter 16, The Ascent to the 4th Level. The arrival of the Thunder Dragon finally brought a sense of relief to Zao and his weary companions. Zao stepped forward and asked in a low, hushed voice, "Master, what kind of monster is that lurking there in the darkness?" It appeared and vanished without a trace. They hadn't even seen its face, yet they had already lost 10 brothers. Since they believed the master knew everything, the group finally began to calm down. The fear in their hearts eased slightly, and they all leaned in, listening intently for his answer. It is a Givian creature, a human being who has undergone a second mutation after the human sickness. This type of monster is truly sinister, cruel, strange, and incredibly poisonous. Each one is immensely powerful, and if you happen to encounter one, there is basically only one path: death. Ju and Ju stared intently at those scarlet eyes lurking within the darkness. To be honest, he really hadn't expected this kind of Givian creature to appear so soon. "Elder Brother Aelin, are you absolutely sure you can deal with him?" With a nervous tone, he asked the one question that everyone was desperate to have answered. After all, they had no choice but to place all their trust in him. If even he couldn't handle it, he feared the entire army would be wiped out right then and there. "Jisen, give me your weapon," Ju and Ju said, turning his gaze toward the warrior. His previous katana was simply too poor. To face a Givian creature, one needs a proper weapon. Without saying a word, Jisen handed over the 2 Sura battle blades he held in his hands. After that, he reached out and drew a long Sura spear for himself. This was his Super Sura weapon set. He carried 3 sets in total, including those battle blades. A long spear and a bow completed his arsenal, while in the shadows, those scarlet eyes flickered with strange cries. But at that very moment, we see the sun beginning its slow ascent. A single ray of sunlight acted as a prelude, finally illuminating the distant horizon. As that light pierced the darkness, everyone finally saw the monster, and it was utterly terrifying. It possessed 3 eyes, a mouth filled with razor-sharp fangs, and sickly gray skin. Its left hand was shaped like a jagged claw, while its right hand was as sharp as a sword. It even had a tail. A row of bony spines grew along its back, and we see 2 blood-stained maws embedded in its chest. The creature was short in stature, yet it appeared ferociously extreme, with a left hand as agile as a blade. Its right claw was as sharp as a shadowy palm, and its 3 eyes were filled with a bloodthirsty fanaticism. Possessing a terrifying magic, it seemed to fear absolutely nothing. It stood as if it dominated everything in existence, glowing with a cold, violent, and murderous light. Upon seeing such a creature, everyone felt a chill. It was, after all, gnawing on a heart with a bloody mouth and a fierce gaze. "White Fox, take everyone in this direction first," he commanded. Even if the fruit was vital to them, he knew that for the others, the priority was survival and growth. To increase their strength quickly, Ju and Ju stared at the creature while pulling out his phone. He located the spot where a Givian tree grows and instructed White Fox to lead the group there. Ju and Ju took a final look and said, "Master, please be careful. We will wait for you there." With those words, and under the leadership of White Fox, the group began to run away at full speed. With a sinister cackle, the Givian creature didn't stop them. Its eyes remained fixed solely on Ju and Ju. It was as if it were looking at the most delicious meal in the world, its long, pointed tongue flickering out. It licked its lips greedily, and then, in the very next moment, the hunt began. The Givian creature turned into a gray shadow, vanishing with a whistling sound at such speed that, in a blink, its left claw reached out. It tore toward his chest while the blade of its right hand slashed horizontally toward his neck, a lightning-fast offensive. Against such an attack, even the Rat King he killed last night would have been severely wounded. To be honest, most would be dead already. However, Ju and Ju reacted with incredible speed. The Sura battle blade in his hand, now wrapped in the power of the Black Dragon, rang out twice as it blocked the strike. The Givian creature's deadly strike, backed by terrifying power, actually sent the monster reeling back. It was thrown several meters away with a heavy thud. "Humph," Hugh and Ju hadn't given an inch. Clang, clang, the Givian creature's claws struck again. Its blades were as hard as tempered iron and steel, clashing against Hugh and Ju's Sura battle blade. Sparks flew and sharp cracks echoed through the air. Its attack speed was truly something to behold. Its movement speed was equally terrifying, making it a blur of lethal intent. In the blink of an eye, the two of them fought their way far down the street. Wherever they passed, any obstacles in their path were simply shredded by their relentless attacks. Boom. After hundreds of rounds, Hugh and Ju delivered a kick with what felt like 10,000 tons of force. He struck the mutant creature heavily. Under the impact of that enormous strength, the beast was sent flying. It crashed through an entire building before finally coming to a halt. Slowly, it stood back up, its eyes now completely bloodshot with rage. With blood gushing from its mouth, it stared through the hole at Hugh and Ju with pure terror. Without a moment's hesitation, it turned and fled, leaving behind only Hugh and Ju's cold, dismissive snort. He was no longer hiding his true strength. Dragon arms, feet, and a tail began to erupt from his body. With a thunderous sound, he transformed into a humanoid Tyrannosaurus and gave chase. We see the mutant creature, having already evolved for a second time, desperately trying to escape. How could Hugh and Ju let it slip away from under his nose when he's so close to reaching the 4th level? Boom, boom, boom. Hugh and Ju's speed was nothing short of astonishing. His dragon tail swayed, and in just a few breaths, he was less than 4 meters from the creature when he suddenly lunged. The tyrannical power of the black dragon within his body, fueled by the roars of the 2 dragons behind him, suddenly explodes outward. With a sharp crack, the energy coils tightly around the mutant creature like a living snare. While the beast struggles with continuous, desperate screams, poof, the trap is set. Entangled by the black dragon and unable to move an inch, the mutant creature watches helplessly as its own head is severed by Hugh and Ju, and for a brief moment, blood sprays everywhere. It flows like a spring, drenching Hugh and Ju's body after he finally puts an end to this mutant creature. Hugh and Ju then commands the 2 black dragons behind him to begin their feast. Every bite that enters his abdomen brings a powerful current of heat that surges through Hugh and Ju's entire body. Bite after bite, he feels himself steadily advancing toward the 4th level. Just as he is on the verge of reaching that 4th level, Hugh and Ju suddenly feel something new. A distinct, refined current begins to pulse within him, attacking his internal limits. With a grunt and a heavy thud, Hugh and Ju swallows the final morsel and ascends to the 4th level at last. Black lightning begins to crackle inside his body, one bolt after another. At the same time, Hugh and Ju is surprised to discover a mysterious space opening in the center of his brow. Inside this strange realm, everything is gray and hazy beneath a vast celestial dome. A sea of black thunder floats there, and in the very center, something is visible to the naked eye. A black thunder dragon sword is brewing, a sight that causes Hugh and Ju's expression to shift in wonder. As the thunder dragon sword takes shape, a mere thought sends the lightning-wrapped blade into motion. It appears suspended right before him, emitting a terrifying aura of pure destruction. It was born solely for ruin, and under its shadow, even the Sura battle blade in Hugh and Ju's hand seems to pale. The blade immediately lost its luster, and Hugh Y. Ju realized that he, too, finally possessed a natal weapon. Returning to his normal state, he withdrew the thunder dragon sword, which vanished into a few lingering sparks of light. The gap between the 3rd and 4th stages is, to be honest, an enormous dividing line. We see that the black dragon's power within Hugh Y. Ju's body has now completely transformed into black thunder. Furthermore, his physical form has ascended several levels, a feat worthy of every bit of recognition he receives. As we move into Chapter 17, even as trees fall and infinite mutant creatures gather at dawn, a new day arrives. But for many, many people, they would never have the chance to see this day. One by one, the once prosperous cities across the entire country have begun to wither. The bustling crowds of the past are nowhere to be found. In their place, we find only groups of mutant creatures prowling the ruins. They wander through residential neighborhoods and every street where many survivors still remain. These poor souls wait in the darkness, hidden away with nothing but desperation and fear for company. After a long night in Junshun, the Imperial Army finally makes its move. Alongside many superpower users, and despite suffering grave losses, they managed to launch a rescue. They saved over 800,000 survivors, though Junshin's original population was 10 million, a staggering 70% loss. Of the 3 million people who initially remained, it is feared that more than 2 million perished in the jaws of those mutant creatures. The fact that the Imperial Army rescued so many in a single night shows they truly did everything they could. The army of Junshin has now constructed a massive shelter in the eastern suburbs. Imagine the scale, a refuge covering 5 million square meters and standing 300 meters high. The reason this place can accommodate so many survivors is quite simple. It is because there are 9 entire floors built deep underground within the shelter. Inside the Central Comfort Building, in a luxurious conference hall, we find the high-ranking leaders of Junshin who are still alive. They are all seated at the conference table, their eyes fixed on the large central satellite projection screen. Leading them is an imposing middle-aged man in a military uniform. With 2 stars on his shoulder, he sits among other officers, men and women alike, all wearing expressions of absolute gravity. As they scanned the city of June with their satellites, they discovered something truly horrifying. There are more than 30 million mutated creatures in total, scattered across every county in the city. In every district and town, while human mutations are few, insects, animals, and birds have become the dominant force. Rats and ants are especially prevalent. Many towns with only 2,000 or 3,000 inhabitants are now completely overrun by them. Thanks to Mukinsu's report on the rebirth and the Imperial Army's subsequent preparations, there are twice as many survivors as there might have been. The fact that Hui could survive 8 years with such a mortality rate suggests that luck played a very significant role. General, what kind of tree is this? It's growing far too fast, in less than 3 minutes. It has actually reached a height of 200 meters. The man in charge of the satellite, Lin Mangio, divided the projection into 9 screens, each showing one of these towering trees. These trees, from their trunks to their leaves, are a deep dark blue, laden with fruit resembling red apples that ripen from blue to crimson, shining with a faint red glow. And around these mysterious, towering trees, we see countless mutated creatures. They rush forward like a tide. Honestly, anyone with trypophobia might faint at the sight of them swarming through the sky and crawling over the earth. Every single one of them is being drawn in by the sweet, heavy scent of the ripening fruit. After those trees reached their full height, another mutated tree grew in the center of Yun City, rising under the morning sun as the creatures gathered. They are apparently waiting for the fruit to ripen, watching with a hunger that is almost palpable. In the conference hall, a group of high-ranking Imperial Army commanders watch the scene on the projection screen, feeling their skin crawl. What kind of tree is this? We had mentioned such things, but seeing it is another matter entirely. And what kind of fruit could it be? It can attract mutated creatures within a 10-kilometer radius, noted a man with a single star on his shoulder. He spoke with a visible shudder. This is the sub-general of the facility, Yi Zhonghua, and he assumed Mu Qingshui would have the answers. General Lin frowned slightly, deciding to use the satellite link to contact Mu Qingshui immediately. After a brief moment, the call connected, and Mu Qingshui's voice filled the room. Linzon reached out to ask him specifically about the 9 trees currently growing in Cloud City. He needed to know exactly what these trees were and why they were appearing now. If one consumes the fruit they bear, whether they are a superhuman warrior or a Jibian creature, the former can advance beyond 5 stars. As for the latter, it allows them to evolve at a terrifyingly rapid pace. For us, this is of vital importance. Furthermore, I am already leading all the superhuman warriors toward the Jibian tree in the city center. Linzon, can you ensure that the area surrounding the Jibian tree remains free from any artillery bombardment? Mu Qingshui was keenly aware of every trace of energy present in the city center today. In fact, he had been planning to contact Lin Zingxiao at that very moment. He wanted him to use rockets to clear the perimeter of the central Jibian tree. Lin Zingxiao offered a faint, knowing smile. Ever since he saw the Jibian creatures swarming within 10 kilometers, he had been thinking the exact same thing. We shall proceed with the strike shortly. After ending the call with Mu Qingshui, Linzon immediately issued the order. 10,000 rockets were prepared to blanket the area surrounding the Jibian tree in the heart of the city. Meanwhile, near that same central tree, we find ourselves on the rooftop of a 10-story building just 2 kilometers away. The group is led by Hu and Huai Baiyu, along with Zhao, Hisan, and 10 other superhuman warriors. They are watching from a distance, as only they would dare to venture this close to the epicenter. If Hu and Huai Baiyu weren't there, Zhao and the others would have been torn apart by the infinite swarm. Deng Tian was incredibly surprised by the sheer number of Jibian creatures surrounding them. He marveled at the height of the tree, which cast its influence over a 10-mile radius. With the Jibian creatures spread out like a vast sea, he wondered how they could possibly harvest anything. Even if they brought snakeskin bags to collect the fruit, the task seemed insurmountable. Tang Wan stared at the Jibian tree, which held at least thousands of individual fruits. Deep down, he wished he could claim every single one of them for himself. Hu and Huai spoke with an air of indifference, telling the others to simply gather what they could. He knew that under the temptation of the fruit, even his presence as a top-tier power wouldn't scare the creatures off. To these creatures, the fruit is like a drug. Consequently, he never entertained the thought of monopolizing the tree. There are so many Jibian creatures that even if one spent all day cutting them down, the work would never end. Just as Hu and Huai were observing the blooming tree, a shadow suddenly fell across the area. Something was leaping over the buildings, bypassing the creatures to land directly beneath the Jibian tree. The Jibian creatures let out a collective roar, surging forward like a rising tide. They roared at the 4 silhouettes that had appeared, yet strangely, not a single creature dared to attack. With just a single glance from those few figures, the surrounding Jibian creatures froze in their tracks. They retreated in a state of utter confusion, and it is here that we encounter those we met before. 4 Gibeon creatures appeared, moving as swift as white fox arrows and breathing deeply. The 4 silhouettes we saw appearing beneath the Gibeon tree are, in fact, 4 Gibeon creatures themselves. They are remarkably similar to the one encountered before, save for the color of their skin and their distinct claws. They are almost identical. Among these 4, we see 2 with black skin and 4 sharp claws. Another possesses golden skin and 6 claws, and all of them radiate a sinister, ghostly, and truly evil aura. In these early stages, when ordinary human superhumans face such Gibeon creatures, the outcome is predictable. Even the sacred thorn superhumans find themselves slaughtered, meeting their end the moment they cross paths with them. They are, quite simply, an existence that is absolutely untouchable. He tells the others to stay put, while gesturing for the white fox to follow him. Jihuiju shows no sign of fear. In fact, he seems to be feeling a bit excited about the prospect. Devouring Gibeon creatures is far more beneficial than consuming disaster-level beings, or so he believes. With a quick wave to the white fox, he begins leaping skillfully between the surrounding buildings. It is 6:30 in the morning when Jihuiju and the white fox prepare for what comes next. They leap down, landing directly beneath the Gibeon tree near the restaurant. Their arrival instantly draws the undivided attention of the 4 Gibeon creatures. Sinister eyes fixate on our protagonists as the creatures grow restless, flicking their long, pointed tongues. He reveals the blade in his hands, which seems to pulse with a thirst for blood. With a sharp grunt, one of the black Gibeon creatures loses its patience and lets out a strange, piercing cry. It rushes toward Jihuiju with killing intent, but Jihuiju only responds with a sinister, knowing smile. In that heartbeat, the Thunder Dragon's sword manifests, crackling with destructive black lightning. He swings the dragon sword violently, unleashing a strike that extends several meters in length. The violent force of the thunder sword sliced through the sky with terrifying speed. We can see the sheer horror of this blade as it cuts the air, creating visible shockwaves. It is extremely fierce, making a heavy, booming sound as it strikes the violent black Gibeon creature head-on. The creature felt the immediate danger of death and, with a roar, released a black gas from its entire body. It tried to block the strike with its claws and blades, but the impact was absolute. However, the terrifying thunder sword proved to be completely unstoppable. The very moment it touched the black Gibeon creature, the outcome was decided. It burned the beast from the inside out before slicing horizontally right through its body. The creature was instantly split in half, sending black blood splattering everywhere. He took full advantage of the opening to finish off this black Gibeon creature for good. The flickering black lightning surrounding Jihuiju didn't fade. Instead, it grew even more wild. Gradually, it transformed into 9 thunder stars that circled his body with an astonishing breath of destruction. This power protected him, making him look like a true emperor of the apocalypse. To be honest, even Jihuiju didn't quite understand why he could control this thunder. In his previous life, he had seen news reports about the eruption of the Black Dragon. He recalled that there was no thunder like this, only a terrifying black flame. He wondered if this new power was because he had swallowed and fused with it. As for the 3 remaining Gibeon creatures, they could only stare at Jihuiju from a distance. Their eyes revealed a sudden fear, and they unconsciously took several steps back. Jihuiju ignored them for now, controlling the twin dragons behind him to rise and devour the fallen creature bit by bit. After swallowing 2/3 of the beast, Jihuiju turned toward Bayu, who was watching him from behind with eyes full of admiration. "You can eat the rest," he offered, and Bayu quickly thanked his great black dragon brother. Upon hearing this, Bayu was both surprised and overjoyed, immediately using his main body and avatar to begin devouring the black Gibeon creature. For the remaining flesh and blood, he found he could simply transform his main body and avatar to handle the task. He didn't even need to transform himself personally into his primary form just to eat, which was quite convenient, really. With a collective howl, the other Gibeon creatures gathered from all directions, their gazes fixed firmly on Jihuiju. They were all filled with a mixture of fear and awe, yet despite their terror, not a single one of them retreated. The reason was the Gibeon fruit. Its attraction was like a drug to an addict who hasn't had a fix in a very long time. When faced with such a temptation, they simply wouldn't care who you are once that fruit finally matures. One might wonder about the suppression of their lineage, but the allure of the fruit had already completely suppressed their reason. And here we meet Lin Zhengxiao, the military chief of the Central Conference Hall at the Yunshan shelter. Watching the projection screen, he saw the white-haired figure with the powerful lineage and wings upon his back. There was Jihuiju, surrounded by stars and flickering lightning, with a boundless murderous intent shining in his eyes. The chief didn't hesitate, ordering his staff to contact the bomber department immediately. "Send 30,000 rockets right now," he commanded, to provide direct cover over the city center. He wanted the Gibeon fruit tree bombed as well. He was determined to see that animal dead. The minister of the bombing department gave a quick nod and confirmed the order. The launch was scheduled to begin in just 3 minutes. Meanwhile, a message arrived from the Jihoyu group of Sandu. They were asking if support was needed, just as the minister of the information department rushed into the room. "Report. What kind of support can we expect?" Lin Xiao asked, his mind immediately jumping to the Jawas. The Minister of Information slowly and deliberately spoke 3 words. What? Do the Jawas actually exist? Lin Xiao couldn't hide his shock upon hearing this revelation. He had heard whispers of the Jawas before, but he never truly believed they were real since he'd never seen one. The Minister of Information nodded, confirming that if support was needed, they were ready. The Jihoyu group would send 3 Xiantian-level Jawas to form the Yunshin Super Warrior Alliance. And as it turned out, our Yunshin shelter fell directly under the jurisdiction of the Jihoyu group. Lin Xiao was absolutely delighted, realizing they did indeed need the help. We need that support. Respond to the message immediately, he ordered. With a quick nod, the Minister of Information turned and left the room. Good God, to think the Jawas actually exist, it was almost too much to process. One has to wonder who is truly more powerful, the super warriors we know, or are the Jawas actually superior? Well, who can say for sure? We'll simply have to wait for them to clash to find out the truth. And then, round after round of rockets began to tear through the sky. With 300 rockets in every single volley, the scene was, to be honest, spectacularly terrifying. Their target was the entire center of Yunshin City, leaving nowhere to hide. Meanwhile, 5 or 6 kilometers away from that city center, we find ourselves on the rooftop of a tall building. More than 100 people have gathered here, all of them super warriors clad in their specialized armor. Their leader is a woman wearing a set of light, sleek armor. She has an exquisite figure, and we recognize her immediately as Mu Qingshui. Standing by her side are lowly Chu Bei-xian in heavy armor and Zhu Hongyu in her vermilion sparrow suit. Then there is Su Mengxi in her ice armor. Chu Bei-xian watches her constantly, fueled by deep suspicion. He fears his own daughter might be an infiltrator sent by the dragon demon, and so he stays alert, waiting to see if she pulls out a phone to report that the army is about to bomb the city center. Su Mengxi looks at her father, feeling his constant gaze, and she can't help but feel a bitter smile in her heart. It seems even her own father doesn't trust her, yet she tells herself she is doing this for the sake of the beauty. The terror that man commands is beyond anything they can imagine. She truly wants to send a warning, but she simply has no opportunity, and just then, Mu Qingshui's phone begins to ring. It's a call from Lin Zongjian. Mu Qingshui answers, asking him how things are progressing on his end. In 3 minutes, the rockets will reach their destination. He asks if they are safely outside the blast radius. She assures him they are 5 or 6 kilometers away, so there is no immediate danger. That's good, he replies, but he has changed the plan. The dragon demon is currently beneath the Jibian tree. They intend to bomb the demon and the Jibian tree together in one massive strike. What? Mu Qingshui is visibly displeased upon hearing this news. This Jibian tree is the closest one to them, and they had only just arrived to secure it. As she begins to protest the bombing, a low, rhythmic humming sound starts to fill the air. Thunderous roars echo from the horizon, and looking up at the sky is enough to make anyone's skin crawl. Wave after wave of rockets, packed with immense destructive power, began to blanket the entire sky. As they streaked directly over their heads, we see a scene that was truly breathtaking. It really is spectacular, Boss Mu, Lin Zongjian remarked, but today's Jibian tree is as good as gone. He reminded her there would be more trees tomorrow, but a chance to kill that dragon demon doesn't come every day. The voices of Lin Zongjian and the others echoed through the line, and she knew he was right. What you say makes sense, Mu Qingshui replied, shaking her head with a hint of regret, though she felt relieved. After all, supernatural beings can still absorb sunlight to cultivate, even without the tree. The dragon demon, were they really planning to kill her big brother, the black dragon? Meng Bao frowned slightly as she listened to their conversation, clearly troubled by what she heard. What is it? Is there a problem? Chu Bei-xian asked, his eyes narrowing as he watched Meng Bao. She told him directly that she would not be his enemy, and if they intended to kill him, they should count her out. Meng Bao spoke her mind plainly, and we learn that there are still more surprises waiting for us later. We turn now to the magnetic field of the Jibian tree, where the struggle for the Jibian fruit reaches its peak. Beneath that very tree, the black dragon and Zhu also heard a sudden, thunderous roar approaching. He lifted his head to look at the horizon, and immediately, his eyes narrowed in suspicion. Amidst the terrifying rockets and the waves of incoming fire, he wondered what on earth this could be. The white fox, who knows nothing of human technology, stared at the flying objects in the sky, feeling quite hesitant. It seems the Imperial Army is sending in the rockets, a slight escalation, to be honest. The white fox, still baffled by these human inventions, realized they were about to bomb the area near the black dragon. Hizen and the other powerful men felt their skin crawl, and, without a second thought, they began to run. They simply didn't know if their martial super armor could withstand the bombardment of such rockets. The countless Jibian creatures nearby heard the whistling sound and raised their heads in confusion, having no idea what was coming. Their eyes were filled with nothing but curiosity as they watched those flying objects approach the black dragon. Deep down, however, the white fox felt a very dangerous sensation beginning to take hold. Even as a high-level evil being, the white fox could feel her heart racing with pure dread in that moment. Just as the black dragon prepared to act, and the rockets drew within 3 kilometers of the Jibian tree, a shocking scene unfolded. It seemed that as soon as anything reached that 3-kilometer radius around the tree, everything changed. In an instant, every single rocket shut down and tumbled helplessly from the sky. There wasn't even an explosion. Not even a single spark managed to flicker before they fell. A bit anticlimactic, to be honest. Back at the military conference room, Lin Jingxiao watched the falling rockets and demanded to know what was happening. The man was left completely stunned, staring at the screens in utter disbelief. The other senior officers were equally speechless, unable to fathom why their high-tech weaponry had suddenly failed. Eventually, someone suggested it might be the tree itself, that the Jibian tree's magnetic field was the culprit. The Minister of Military Affairs offered this reluctant guess, theorizing that the field had caused the rockets to malfunction. Everyone nodded in agreement as they listened. It was the only explanation that made any sense at all. With their primary plan neutralized, the officers turned to Lin Jingxiao, wondering what their next move should be. It seemed that the Black Dragon had incredible luck following him wherever he went. Lin Jingxiao's face grew dark with frustration as he processed this latest setback. He realized that if they truly wanted to kill him, they would have to encourage the people on the ground to open fire. And just as that thought crossed his mind, the situation shifted once again. A deafening roar erupted as thousands of Jibian fruits suddenly appeared all over the massive Jibian tree. At that very moment, having reached full maturity, they began to emit a truly strange and intoxicating fragrance. With high-pitched screeches, the 3 Jibian creatures present revealed a look of pure, unbridled fury in their eyes. They began to climb the tree with frantic speed, while the flying Jibian creatures in the sky dove down en masse. The entire area descended into absolute chaos, punctuated by the terrifying roar of the yellow leopard. Realizing it was time to act, the 4-eyed white fox transformed into her original form with incredible speed. As she scrambled toward the fruit, He Hui also transformed into his powerful dragon-man state, wreathed in thunder and starlight. Gripping his thunder dragon sword, he let out a sharp whistle and vanished into a streak of black light. He quickly overtook the 3 climbing creatures, and within a few brief moments, the enormous Jibian tree was completely swarmed. It was covered in every imaginable kind of Jibian creature, all of whom began slaughtering one another in the process. We can see a vast number of these creatures losing their footing and falling from the high branches. The scene was far too chaotic, giving the flying creatures in the sky a distinct and unfair advantage. Some of them managed to snatch 2 or 3 fruits in their teeth before quickly flying away. Others greedily swallowed one after another on the spot before fleeing with their heads tucked between their legs. He Hui felt a momentary pang of distress and let out a roar, echoed by the twin dragons manifesting behind him. The shockwave sent many creatures tumbling down as he suddenly activated the spatial power within the Mei Xian stone. His dragon power was vast. Thunder and stars emitted a black bolt, and the dragon spirit began to peel away from him. The dragon spirits struck out one after another, frantically massacring the surrounding creatures as he reached 10 nearby fruits with a single thought. They were instantly gathered into the Mei Xian space. My god, just look at the scale of it from a distance. Zhao and the others watching from afar felt their skin crawl at the sight of that giant tree swarming with monsters. If they were to participate in such a scene, we suspect they wouldn't last more than a few seconds. They would be torn apart by an endless swarm of monsters in the blink of an eye. Suddenly, So Minbao appears. He swallows 2 fruits, gathers 2 more, and leaves, not being greedy at all. But why does he suddenly feel the presence of a golden Jibian creature nearby? It is staring right at him. What a truly terrifying scene this has become. It isn't something we can just walk up and grab. Mu Qin Shui and the others have also approached within 2 or 3 li. Zhu Hanyu shudders, feeling his skin crawl, especially as he witnesses the sheer ferocity of He Wu and Zhu. It's no wonder Meng Bao doesn't dare to be his enemy. He turns out to be unnaturally strong. Xu Bei Xian watches in absolute awe, while Xu Minshi looks deeply at his daughter without saying a word. To be honest, the strength displayed by He Wu and Zhu has completely surprised him as well. He felt immensely grateful for the decision he made back then. Otherwise, his entire family, well, they might have died. Meanwhile, back at the fruit on the massive Jibian tree, He Wu and Zhu roars, driving away a golden ghost chains creature and successfully gathering 7 fruits. He warns the golden ghost chains creature that it is courting death by interfering with the Jibian fruit. Enraged, the creature lets out a deafening roar, its entire body beginning to emit a strange glow. It radiates a dazzling golden light, brutally swinging its blades and claws to launch an attack. The golden light moves as fast as a lightning bolt. Even someone like Meng Bao Yusan could be killed instantly by it. Seeing the incoming threat, the gaze of He Wu and Zhu turns cold and focused. In that moment, 2 thunder stars transform into lethal thunder spears and are hurled to strike them down. A terrifying power of thunder erupts, and the golden ghost chains creature finds its entire body shaken by the impact. Moments later, its shoulders were pierced through, and we see a look of pure terror flash in its eyes. It fled in a panic, and He Wu and Zhu didn't bother to give chase. The Jibian fruit's effect was far more valuable than a meal. He is moving through the Jibian tree now, where only a few fruits remain. In less than 2 minutes, the creatures below fell in droves. Under He Wu and Ju's bombardment, he called out to the white fox and descended from the tree at top speed, his violent aura clearing the way. No creature dared to block him, and the white fox followed closely, having swallowed 3 fruits whose immense energy was now surging within its body. It needs a safe place to digest that power. Watching them leave, Muqing Shui wondered if he was truly human or that black dragon. She turned to Shu Minshi, asking if he knew the stranger's identity since they had been in contact before. Shu Minshi noted he claimed to be human and was interested in the Tayama's shelter. Perhaps, he suggested, there was no need to be enemies. He suggested investigating He Wu and Ju's identity and interests first, hoping for a peaceful resolution before the second apocalypse arrived the next day. They eventually settled at Inyun High School, where Muqing Shui fell silent, but Zhu Hanyu reminded them of the warriors killed the night before. Shu Minshi indifferently pointed out that those warriors had attacked first, treating him like a monster. To be honest, there isn't much to say when someone is killed while acting in self-defense, a point that left Zhu Hanyu speechless. At that moment, Meng Bao declared he would protect humans but refused to be an enemy of the Black Dragon, all while eating a Jibian fruit. When asked what would happen if the man became an enemy of humanity, Meng Bao simply scoffed at the idea. He stated quite bluntly that while he protects people, he would never become a puppet for human rulers. He added that if the Black Dragon ever targeted the innocent, he would stop him, leaving Muqing Shui at a loss for words. Zhu Hanyu mentioned the death of Lin Zhongyang's grandson, but Meng Bao just laughed, refusing to get involved in their human intrigues. After some back and forth about human nature and contact info, Shu Minshi agreed to share what he knew, and they headed for the shelter. Meanwhile, He Wu and Ju returned to the underground airport to organize their supplies before heading to the high school together. The area was contaminated and unfit for a long stay, so they knew their time there would be short. We see Muqing Shui's shelter, where 34 survivors and over 20 superhuman warriors remain at Inyun High School, though this journey has already cost them 8 lives. Only 12 warriors are left. A school that once held thousands of students now houses only these few, as the caravan finally pulls into the Inyun campus. He Wu and Ju settled into the principal's residence, a small 3-story building where the ground floor serves as a lobby and dining area, and the second floor as a meeting space. The third floor is the living area, and since the school has its own dedicated water wells, the supply hasn't been cut yet. The first thing He Wu and Ju did was take a shower. To stay alert, he soaked in cold water, his slender frame and perfect muscle lines visible alongside the black dragon tattoo on his chest as he slowly gathered his thoughts. He is currently counting the Jibian fruits obtained this time, a total of 139, all floating within the sea of consciousness between his brows. To be honest, he hadn't expected this space to serve as storage. He had only wanted to try it out, discovering he could truly store objects from the outside world. It had surprised him in that moment, and after his cold bath, he changed into a black casual suit that Zhao and the others had scavenged from a shopping mall. Their supplies aren't just food, but daily necessities as well. Since the principal of Inyun High School is a woman, everything in this room was intended for female use. He Wu and Ju opened a drawer and actually found a vibrator, which, naturally, was unexpected. Before drying his white hair and checking the time, it was 10:45 a.m. Besides some messages from Meng Bao, there was a friend request. He took a look and approved Muqing Shui's request, though he didn't start a chat with her. Instead, he opened the door and headed to the second-floor conference room, where Zhao, Machine Gun, Gu Jiao, Den Tian, Tan Wan, and Li Si were waiting. Gei Luo was also there, a close friend of Machine Gun, who possesses a super yellow martial power, a ranking within the super martial level. These ranks, Ordinary, Golden Eagle, Stone Sword, King's Sword, Yellow Sword, and Sacred Sword, correspond to the levels of the mutated creatures they face. From true seeds to evil seeds, these Jibian creatures are evolving faster in this early stage of the disaster. Seeing him enter, everyone stood up and shouted, "Boss!" He Wu and Ju told them to use that title. Meanwhile, the white fox has finished digesting the 3 Jibian fruits it swallowed, as the energy within them is immense. Super warriors don't usually need time to digest and can absorb energy directly, but even creatures struggle. He Wu and Ju had also swallowed 6 or 7 fruits earlier. He doesn't quite know why he can absorb them instantly without needing time to digest, but having consumed those fruits, he is now in the middle stage of the 4th order. He feels he needs at least a dozen more to reach the late stage. As the rank increases, the required amount likely doubles several times, perhaps even tenfold. He Wu and Ju took the head seat and told them to sit, noting that the supplies and the number of survivors have all been fully accounted for. Gu Jiao picked up the notebook from the table and, glancing at the pages, noted that we have 25 ordinary survivors in the underground airport and 34 at the school. In total, there are 59 people, counting everyone present. There are 23 super warriors, and they have managed to secure 786 units of food. These supplies can provide everyone with 3 meals a day for about 3 months, Gu Jiao explained as he placed the notebook in front of He Wu and Ju. He Wu and Zhu looked at the notebook, lit a cigarette, and asked if they were all truly prepared to follow him without any reservations whatsoever. They all nodded in agreement. While there might have been some doubt before, seeing his overwhelming power with their own eyes had settled the matter completely. He looked at them, sensing their sincerity, and understood that in this new world, a strong leader isn't just a preference. It is a necessity for survival. He decided to distribute 90% of the Jibian fruits to the team, keeping only a small portion of the true seed fruits for his own cultivation needs. It was a generous move, and perhaps the best way to ensure the strength of his inner circle as the world outside continued to spiral into chaos. He told them to spend the day cultivating, and Den Tian and the others left feeling quite pleased, bowing to He Wu and Zhu to show their gratitude. He instructed the superpowered warriors to patrol in shifts to keep the Jibian creatures out, before standing up and admitting he was exhausted after staying up all night. Having hunted Jibian creatures from 5 yesterday evening until this morning, even someone as strong as He Wu and Zhu was beginning to feel the strain. Zhao nodded emphatically, telling the boss not to worry and promising not to let a single creature inside. They were all truly grateful to have found such a powerful leader. Without him, they knew these Jibian fruits would have been far out of their reach, and so, we leave them for a moment as they prepare for the trials ahead. We move to chapter 21, where we find that by the second day of the apocalypse, the losses among living beings worldwide have been staggering, especially within the Qianlong Empire. However, thanks to Mu Qingshui's early warning, the empire had prepared as best it could, while several smaller countries simply collapsed into total bankruptcy. Only a small fraction of superpowered beings are surviving miserably, as massive groups of Jibian creatures now roam everywhere across the landscape. Mutant ghost creatures hide in the shadows, while highly intelligent evil seeds and calamity-level beings are busy organizing hordes of monsters in every city. They are gradually forming a massive force. Meanwhile, back at Inyan High School, they have 3 generators that could power the entire campus if needed. For now, they only need to power one building, the faculty dormitory, where the 50-plus survivors have all been settled in together. The first thing everyone did when the electricity returned was charge their phones, desperate to scroll through the news and see what was left of their world. To see what has become of the world, He Wu and Zhu returned to the principal's office, lay on the bed, and plugged in the phone charger, though it was strange, considering he was recently wreathed in lightning. The phone, it seems, remained unaffected. As he settled into the principal's bed, which carried a faint feminine fragrance, 3 messages from Mu Qingshui appeared on the screen. Hello, I don't know how to address you. Hello, are you there? I want to discuss a few things with you. Hello? If you see this message, could you please respond? He Wu and Zhu finally began to type. The moment he replies, she responds almost instantly. Since I don't know how to address you, Min 11 says you are also human. Call me Black Dragon, he writes, getting straight to the point. I am very interested in your shelter. In a while, I will conquer it, so be prepared. Mr. Black Dragon, since we are both human, you could simply move in, Mu Qingshui suggests. He Wu and Zhu asks the obvious question. If I move in, who will be in charge? Naturally, I will. Mu Qingshui replies with a very confident tone. Upon seeing this, He Wu and Zhu responds with a cold smile. Then there is nothing to talk about. With your skills, you cannot protect that shelter. Mu Qingshui hesitates. I know it is difficult to defend, she admits, because in City Y there are 2 very powerful calamity-level creatures. That is why I want to attract you, so we can work together. You want to dominate me? Ridiculous. In this city, do you really think you're someone important? He Wu and Zhu's words are blunt, to say the least. Mr. Black Dragon, you are so arrogant. It seems we won't reach an agreement. She warns him that if he continues this way, he might lose his life, but he remains unmoved by her threats. On the other side of the connection, she realizes he isn't backing down. This isn't a game to him. This is no joke. He really intends to do it. In that case, Mr. Black Dragon, take care. I'll be waiting for your attack. Back in the lobby of the shelter's central villa, a certain sadness touched Mu Qingshui's face. After sending that final reply, she tried to locate He Wu and Zhu, only to discover the other party had already deleted her, which, to be honest, was a very clear way of ending the conversation. Xiaolan, go call Chu Min 11. A woman guarding the door heard the order and left immediately. Mu Qingshui muttered to herself, Black Dragon, don't let them find your position, or Lin Xian Yao will finish you. She let out a small grimace. A few minutes later, Xiaolan returned alone, without Chu Min 11. Mu Qingshui looked up, her charm tinged with confusion. Xiaolan explained, he escaped. That beast man is truly loyal. He's even willing to abandon his parents and sister. Mu Qingshui's expression darkened. She stood up and went to find Meng Bao, intending to lure 2 superior calamities, the rainback gorillas, toward Cloud City. In his previous life, this gorilla had actually cooperated with humans. Meanwhile, within the shelter, the supernatural beings recruited by Mu Qingshui were busy absorbing the sacred sunlight. By August, the weather had reached a state of constant high temperature. The corpses of the Jibian creatures scattered across the city were drying out rapidly under the relentless sun. Around 3 in the afternoon, a combat helicopter touched down at the Cloud City shelter. On the helipad, Lin Xianyao was already waiting, flanked by a group of high-ranking officials. As the combat helicopter touches down on the pavement, two figures descend with practiced grace, a man and a woman. The man is a monk, dressed in traditional robes, with a strikingly handsome and regal appearance. The woman is a Taoist, wearing a simple habit. Though her features are ordinary, her temperament is truly outstanding. "Welcome, young monk and Taoist Lin Shun," Lin Xianyao says, greeting them warmly. He invites them to the Cloud City shelter, where a banquet has already been prepared. Lin Xianyao wears a faint, cruel smile as he leads the group forward to welcome his guests. The Taoist, Lin Shun, takes a silent look around the surroundings before fixing her gaze on Lin Xianyao to ask exactly how many super warriors they have managed to recruit. Lin Xianyao leads the way, explaining that they have rescued about 800,000 survivors and recruited 750 super warriors, all of whom are currently training within the shelter's walls. The decisive and energetic Taoist nun, Lin Shun, instructs him to prepare a public announcement to establish the Super Warrior Alliance, making it clear that anyone who refuses to join is considered anti-human. Lin Xianyao smiles, noting that the content of the announcement is already prepared and they were simply waiting for the right moment to release it. These two, we should note, are congenital warriors. The ranks of warriors he has heard of range from acquired to congenital, then to grandmaster and great-grandmaster. A congenital warrior can release true energy externally, which is no small feat. They can even hover briefly in the air, making them incomparably powerful. Faced with such beings, it's no wonder Lin Xianyao treats them with the utmost respect. During the feast, these two ancient warriors prefer only light vegetarian dishes, not a hint of meat or a drop of alcohol. Sensing the right moment, Lin Xianyao mentions a certain demonic dragon. He explains that this creature was born in their city and killed many of their human super warriors in a single night. If left unchecked, it could become a catastrophic problem in the future. The handsome monk asks with curiosity what kind of demonic dragon it is. In response, Lin Xianyao pulls out his phone to show them the footage of the previous battle. He plays the video, showing the figure covered in dragon scales, with sharp teeth, horns upon his head, and a long, dark tail. To be honest, it's a terrifying sight. The handsome monk watches the screen for half a minute before nodding. He admits the creature is very strong, but believes it is still within their power to handle. The Taoist nun, Lin Shun, takes the phone and studies it briefly. She agrees that this demonic dragon is a major threat and must be eliminated as soon as possible. However, when she asks for its location, Lin Xianyao can only shake his head. It seems they must wait for the creature to reveal itself once more. We now turn our attention to the Sandu shelter of the Qianlong Empire, home to the Geostrategy Group, originally a top-secret organization within the empire. This group managed all the Empire's super soldiers, acting in the shadows during ordinary wars. The common people had no idea such an organization even existed. The Geostrategy Group possesses immense overall strength, and its president is a Grandmaster-level ancient warrior. We find ourselves now in the command hall of their headquarters. There, we see a man in a black suit with a slender, upright figure. He has an exceptionally handsome face, a sharp gaze, and an imposing aura of authority, appearing to be about 27 years old. At 28 years old, he stares at the satellite projection screen before him. His aura is truly terrifying, radiating the overwhelming magnetic field of a grandmaster. Around this Imperial Army shelter, no creature dares to approach. Even this morning, when an even fruit tree appeared, this man led 300 ancient warriors to seize it. His strength is so unparalleled at this stage that ancient martial arts techniques allow him to kill instantly, a feat that is, frankly, quite remarkable. He hadn't expected Mu Qinsu to be a reincarnation, wondering if she arrived as planned. Meanwhile, we see they've been busy all night, yet Kyoto only rescued 1 million survivors. Just then, an elderly man, a super warrior from Sandu, enters with a vigorous stride. He is asked how the recruitment is going and if the fruit samples have been investigated. Chuan looks around and takes his seat as president, questioning the old man as he approaches. To be honest, the atmosphere in the room is heavy with anticipation. The old man reports that they have summoned 4,836 super warriors to Sandu, and the research on those mysterious fruits shows they contain a superior, divine substance. Our ancient warriors can also consume them. As he speaks of these fruits, the old man's face lights up with a certain enthusiasm for their potential. The spiritual energy of the Nulon continent is nearly exhausted, leaving few spiritual meals, so these fruits are essentially saving their lives. Chuan listens, a golden light flashing in his eyes. He asks if any ancient warrior has tried them and what the effect was. It turns out the effect is comparable to spiritual food. Perhaps this apocalypse isn't so bad for them after all. The old man chuckles, noting that while they aren't super advanced warriors, they aren't weaker either. Chuan reflects that he reached Grandmaster level 6 years ago. Due to the scarcity of spiritual stones and food, he hasn't advanced a single step in over 6 years. He orders 1,000 spiritual stones to be sent to Chuan immediately. A flash of intensity crosses his face. At 16, he found a great opportunity on a certain mountain, which allowed him to become a grandmaster by age 28. His subordinate confirms that 1,000 stones have already been sent to Chu Zhonglin's residence. He then shares some news he just received. A demonic dragon has appeared in Yun City with an astonishing growth rate. Mu Qinsu is requesting its elimination at all costs to avoid endless trouble. This old man, Lu Duan, is a pinnacle master. Chu Wan lights a cigarette, doubting that any Jibian monsters could truly face congenital warriors at this stage. Lu Duan nods, agreeing that for now, no such monsters exist. Since last night, the strongest creature they've encountered is only at the Hotian pinnacle level. He decides to send a few congenital warriors to handle it, though Chu Wan says he will take care of the matter himself before getting up to leave. He is eager to test the effects of the Jibian fruit. Later, at 5:45 p.m. at the Yun City shelter, the Wan Group releases a public announcement. The message states that the Empire will establish a super-advanced warrior league, and anyone who awakens their armor must register their identity with them immediately. They are to become league members at the Wan Group's disposal. Those who fail to answer the call will be considered rebels, which, naturally, is a dangerous label to carry. The Wan Group, an ancient organization from the Lan Empire, demands obedience. We learn that Chief Chu, a grandmaster, led a raid early this morning. He and 300 warriors seized a Jibian fruit tree, and a video of this intense battle was released right beneath the official announcement. In this 10-minute clip, we see Chief Chu leading his men with nothing but a sword, painting a vivid picture of the struggle for the precious fruit. His movements are truly divine as he walks through the air. His archery is so dominant that every arrow seems to command the very space between light and shadow. Vast swarms of Jibian creatures are harvested by his violent energy, which is visible to the naked eye like a physical roar, blocking wave after wave of monsters. While the warriors gather the fruit at high speed, the footage leaves the super warriors of Yun City in a state of complete and utter shock. To the common people, however, it is deeply inspiring. Seeing a man stand like a divine pillar gives them a much-needed sense of hope and security. They find it hard to believe President Chu is so powerful, realizing these legendary ancient warriors actually exist. To be honest, obeying such a man seems only logical. Most super warriors had no complaints after seeing the display, and they immediately began heading toward the Imperial Army shelter in Yun City. Meanwhile, at a local zoo, we find a burly, bald man who has transformed into a silverback gorilla, ruling over the mutated animals in the wake of the disaster. Among his subjects are a blood-maned lion and a terrifying bird. The silverback sits atop a makeshift throne in the lobby, flanked by his predatory kings. Mu Qinsu arrives and greets this new silverback emperor with a smile, inviting him to a shelter where the atmosphere is, frankly, much better than a zoo. Minbo stands behind her, looking a bit dissatisfied, as the silverback emperor asks a very practical question. What are the benefits of such an arrangement? He didn't agree or refuse, but went straight to the point. Even before the world changed, his intelligence was remarkably high, and he knew humans had always cared for him. Because of that history, he holds no hatred for humanity, though if he were a wild beast, he likely would have torn them apart long ago. Mu Qinsu asks what benefits he desires, tentatively suggesting Jibian fruit. The gorilla, Yun Beixin Wan, responds with a rather coarse, knowing smile. She explains that if they secure more fruit in the future, it will be distributed based on merit. It's a fair system, or so she would have him believe. She then mentions the Wan Group's strength against the Jibian creatures that threaten them all, showing Yun Beixin Wan that same 10-minute video of their power. The gorilla watches for a moment, his expression shifting to one of deep dread. He realizes that cooperating with humans is definitely the better path. Staying here is far more dangerous, Mu Qinsu says with a serious expression. She assumes he has already noticed the terrifying creatures lurking in the darkness, and fortunately, there is a safe refuge. It is a place to survive without the fear of being hunted by those Jibian creatures. She doesn't hide the fact that more will come, and Yun Beixin Wan nods, recalling his hunt last night. He felt a powerful, evil presence in the dark. However, he dismisses the thought, noting the terror bird is dead, and orders his brothers with potential to prepare for the move to the shelter. In our next chapter, a Jibian creature arrives to surrender. It is 7:30 in the evening, and as the sun's glow fades, night slowly begins to drape itself over the earth. Outside the school gates of Yun City, amidst the ruins of human life, a golden Jibian creature appears. It emits black lightning across its body and carries an incredibly heavy, oppressive aura. Looking closely, we see deep puncture wounds on its shoulders leaking golden blood. It cries out to the Lord Black Dragon, begging to surrender and for the lightning to finally stop. This golden creature kneels in agony, its raspy voice echoing through the school. Ever since it was struck by the spell earlier that morning, its suffering has been absolute. Not only will the wound not heal, but the violent thunder coursing through its body refuses to dissipate, destroying its vitality no matter how many living beings it devours to recover. Unwilling to die, it comes here hoping the man who wounded it can save it. It acknowledges its attacker was at the Third Order, and as Healy, it is now willing to serve the Great Black Dragon. It pleads for the lightning to be removed, fearing death is imminent. Its voice is sharp and full of malice, but the white fox simply tells it to wait, as the boss is still sleeping. The white fox is pleasantly surprised. Having a Gibeon creature in their service would be a massive advantage. Just then, two powerful figures approach rapidly from the distance. The one in front wears Yasa armor, while the one behind is clad in Baigu armor. Judging by their curved silhouettes, we can see that both of these warriors are women. When they remove their helmets, the leader identifies herself as the director of the school. Jisun, being a student there, recognizes her immediately despite the imposing gear. She looks at Jisun and asks what is happening, explaining that she has come to take any survivors to the Imperial Army shelter, which, in this chaos, sounds like a reasonable offer. Jisun suggests they go inside to talk, and Bai Jingyi leads her daughter into the school. Healy follows closely, though deep down, he still feels a primal instinct to devour these humans. They head to the second-floor conference room. When Bai Jingyi learns that their boss is currently living in her old office, a faint blush creeps onto her mature, charming face. She thinks of her lollipop still in the desk drawer. Meanwhile, after hearing her purpose, Jisun shakes his head, stating that if the boss doesn't go to the shelter, they won't either. He suggests she ask if any other survivors want to leave. Bai Jingyi frowns, reminding them that as super warriors, failing to register means being labeled as rebels. She points out the Empire's undeniable strength, which they surely witnessed in the video. Jisun remains firm, however, insisting that following the boss is his only priority. Seeing his resolve, Bai Jingyi decides she must meet this mysterious leader herself, and Jisun gives her a nod, leading the way to the encounter. That may be so, but the boss hasn't woken up yet. You'll have to wait a bit longer, the white fox says. Meanwhile, Ju has already woken up after a deep, restorative sleep. We see him leaning against the bed, devouring one Gibeon fruit after another. He still has 108 in his hand. After swallowing 15, he ascends to the final stage of the fourth connection. After consuming 30 more, he reaches the peak of the fourth connection, and 50 more push him to the fifth. With only 13 left, Ju decides to stop for now. Even if he ate the rest, it wouldn't be enough to reach the intermediate stage of the fifth connection. It's a pity, really. There are simply too few Gibeon fruits available at the moment. Ju shakes his head and picks up his phone to check the news. He clicks on a headline about Shui Yuan, a Grandmaster-level powerhouse of the Empire who is undeniably formidable. Watching the video, Ju isn't surprised. In his previous life, Shui Yuan was a pillar of humanity. However, he feels no fear, knowing that surpassing him is merely a matter of time. According to his memories, the Shui Yuan of the past was no match for the Black Dragon. As night falls on a new day, Ju gets up, washes, and prepares for the evening. He wears black trousers, but remains shirtless. Since he must go out hunting Gibeon creatures to evolve, he realizes he'll likely need to change his clothes constantly anyway. His plan is to evolve to the 7th stage before attacking Mu Kinsu's refuge. As for whether the Empire will bomb him afterward, Ju finds that prospect highly unlikely. He doesn't believe they would ignore the lives of thousands of survivors. If they did, Yun City would no longer need the Empire, and Ju would simply replace them. After finishing his wash, Ju lights a cigarette and opens the door to the second-floor conference room. "Boss," the white fox calls out, having waited quite a long time. Zhao, the mechanical fox, stands up as well. Bai Jingyi and her daughter, Su, fix their eyes on him instantly. Both women feel an overwhelming sense of mortal danger from his presence. This mother and daughter are currently at the final stage of the Second Order. Meanwhile, Wan Jichao Gu serves as a captain for a super warrior team at the Yun City shelter. "My Lord Black Dragon, please save me. From now on, I am willing to dedicate this life to you," cries the creature. To be honest, his desperation is quite palpable. With his breath weakening, the white-haired elder kneels before Ju, pleading bitterly. "For a demonic creature like you, it is difficult to suppress the urge to devour humans," Ju notes. "How can I trust you?" Ju asks, looking down at the kneeling spirit. The creature silently vows to do everything in its power to suppress its primal instincts. "Please, my Lord Black Dragon, trust me this once," the demonic spirit says, striking its head against the floor. Ju decides that he can indeed suppress the thunder within the creature. However, he warns that if the creature fails to control its hunger for humans, the energy will explode. As a reminder, he places a hand on the monster's head, radiating an aura of destruction. The agitated thunder flickers in his palm, and shortly after, the energy ravaging the spirit's body is condensed into a single ball of lightning within its brain. A delicate procedure, indeed. "Eat these 2 fruits. They will allow you to recover completely from your injuries," Ju says, tossing 2 evolution fruits to the ground. Overjoyed, the spirit quickly grabs them. The spirit quickly stuffs the fruits into its mouth. And as we move into chapter 24, titled Chimensi is stabbed, the monk Daochan arrives at the door. After tossing those 2 evolution fruits to the demonic spirit, Ju takes a seat at the conference table, fixing his gaze on Bai Jingyi and her daughter, Su Qian. He recognizes Su Qian immediately. It turns out she was his classmate. He certainly didn't expect to find her here, and she examines him from head to toe in complete surprise. She can hardly believe it's him, calling out his name in shock. Seeing this, Bai Jingyi asks if this young man is truly her classmate, and Su Qian nods, confirming that he is. She introduces her mother, the principal of the local high school, who explains they've come to take everyone to the Empire's shelter. A noble goal, to be sure. Bai Jingyi gets straight to the point, insisting it's too dangerous to stay. Ju simply smiles, reminding her that he killed General Lin's grandson. Hardly a warm welcome waiting for him. His words leave Bai Jingyi speechless. He tells her to ask the survivors who wants to leave. Those who stay, he promises to protect as much as possible. As he speaks, Ju wears a peculiar smile. He adds that if they are willing to stay, he will welcome them too, an offer he wouldn't make to just anyone. He only extends this invitation because they are Wan Jie's super warriors. Meanwhile, Ji-san advises the principal to stay, noting that under the boss's strength, Jibian fruits are plentiful. He points out that at the Empire's side, they might not get any fruits at all. He tempts them with the fact that one fruit is worth 6 or 7 hours of sun absorption. Ji-san explains that as their collective strength grows, they'll eventually be able to eat several of these fruits every single day. It sounds like a dream, doesn't it? Bai Jingyi feels the temptation. She already knew from the news that these fruits harvested in the morning held great benefits for super warriors. Hearing that one fruit equals hours of intense training makes it hard not to act. She knows the Empire has too many warriors competing for a limited supply. Even if the Empire harvests fruits from countless creatures, she fears none would ever reach her. She quietly asks Ju if she can try just one. She admits that if the effect is real, she is willing to stay. After all, in this apocalypse, strength is the only thing that truly matters. Ju says nothing, but he pulls 2 fruits from his mate Xi in space and places them before the mother and daughter. A silent but effective argument. They thank him, deeply moved. As they take a bite of the red fruit, they find the taste transformative, as if their very essence is shifting. A warm current flows through their bodies, converging into the marks on their palms. By the time the fruit is finished, the symbols on their hands are glowing brightly. Su Qian actually ascends directly from a 2-star to a 3-star super warrior. Seeing their joy, Ju calmly explains the new rules of his house. In the future, fruits must be earned through contribution, gathering supplies at night and seizing fruits by day. Only then can they enjoy the peace of a quiet dinner. Everything is ready now. Gujiao stands up and shouts that it's past 7. Outside, the sun and moon share the sky. He tells his master he is heading out first. He promises that when he returns, he will bring plenty of food for the humans. His wounds have already healed, but Ju speaks to him in a low, cold tone. He warns that if Gujiao isn't back by tomorrow morning, he'll detonate the thunderball in his mind. Terrified, the spirit swears he wouldn't dare betray him and flies out the window. Su Qian asks Ju to wait while she packs a few things in her room, suggesting the others go down to eat first. Ju simply nods and leads the group downstairs. As Su Qian enters her old room and sees a drawer slightly ajar, her mature and charming face flushes instantly. She realizes, with some embarrassment, that he must have seen her things. Downstairs in the dining area, Ju, the White Fox, Zhao, Gujiao, Su Qian, Ji-san, and the others have already taken their places at the table. Our protagonist looks around and notices someone is missing. He asks where Chiminsi is, as she should have returned long ago and hasn't sent any word. Zhao shakes his head, admitting he hasn't seen her. He wonders if she fled after seeing the ancient warriors among the humans, or if perhaps she met with an accident. Su Qian speaks up, revealing she saw Chiminsi at the Empire's shelter. The news hits the room like a physical blow. It seems a betrayal is afoot. Zhao is stunned, cursing the woman's likely treachery. Ju listens with a grim expression, pulling out his phone to call her directly. He tries a voice call on WeChat only to find they aren't even friends. He regrets not killing her sooner, telling himself he was far too merciful. Suddenly, a woman's scream echoes from outside the school, calling for the demonic dragon to come out and die. It seems the betrayal has brought trouble to their doorstep. Qian and Zhao are furious, convinced she should be torn apart. Su Qian whispers to the boss that 2 innate ancient beings arrived at the shelter today. She suspects these newcomers are the ones outside. Ju's gaze turns dark. He vows that if she truly betrayed him, he will make her watch her family perish. He stands and walks out, the others following close behind. Outside the school gates, they find only a handsome monk and a woman in Taoist robes. The monk smiles, referring to Chiminsi as a benefactress, but the Taoist priestess snorts coldly, refusing to acknowledge her as a fellow human. She declares that such heterodoxy must be eliminated. Ju mocks their arrogance, asking if they truly believe they can kill him or if they've simply come to die. He steps forward with Bei and the others. The priestess calls him arrogant, claiming that murdering humans is a crime for which he must pay, regardless of what he is. With a sharp metallic ring, she draws her 3-foot sword and points it coldly at Ju, certain of his impending doom. The monk utters a final "Ba," urging the benefactor to turn back to the shore before it's too late. A dramatic confrontation, to be sure. The handsome monk recites a Buddha's name and calmly suggests that if he simply surrenders, things might go differently. He promises that Ju won't be in any mortal danger, but Zao only responds with a mocking sneer. Daomao had been moving stealthily and in silence, and now he snaps at them, asking why they're barking so much. He asks if they truly believe they are important, especially since they are humans who have allied themselves with monsters. The Taoist priestess declares that they all deserve to die, her gaze burning with a very clear murderous intent. A visible, powerful energy begins to swirl around her body, and then, with a sharp sound, slash. Without another word, she raises her sword and launches a direct attack against Ju. For chapters have been updated today, and we kindly ask for your recommendation votes to keep the story going. Monthly tickets are appreciated, and the following chapters are already available for our members. You can watch for free, and we truly thank you for all your continued support. We move into chapter 25, titled Insignificant. We learn that the priestess's family was killed by the Gebian monsters, which explains quite a lot about her current mood. Because of that tragedy, she harbored a deep, burning hatred for every monster in existence. She moves with a rhythmic, percussive step, tightly gripping her 3-foot-long sword. She displays a mastery of her innate energy, which flows abundantly around her entire frame. With an incredibly fast sword technique, she lunges forward to strike at Ju. Ju simply watches the approaching priestess, seemingly unimpressed by her display of skill. He remains expressionless, though a dark and somber look flickers deep within his eyes. Suddenly, 2 black dragons roar as they erupt from behind him, opening their bloody maws to spit out black thunder. The dragons pounce on her with a deafening crash. And that, as they say, is that. It was a fatal misstep, as the Taoist priestess's sword movements were suddenly cut short by a dark, overwhelming force. 2 black dragons opened their maws and tore through her defense with terrifying precision. In a mere heartbeat, the beasts pounced directly in front of her, leaving no room for escape. The priestess let out a soft grunt as her expression shifted, realizing, perhaps too late, the danger she was in. With light taps of her feet, she transformed into a golden flash, desperately trying to retreat. To be honest, it seems an innate martial artist is only capable of so much when faced with true power. Ju wore a fierce, predatory look as the violent thunder surrounding his body suddenly flared with blinding intensity. The Red Doctor stomped his foot down, shattering the cement floor beneath him with a heavy thud. With a dominant air, he closed the distance in an instant, appearing right before the priestess. His massive hand, wreathed in crackling lightning, lunged for her face at a speed that was simply unnatural. The priestess's eyes widened in sheer disbelief, wondering how this could possibly be happening. She had never expected this man to be so incredibly powerful, and that oversight was proving costly. With a sharp sound, Ju firmly gripped her cheek and tossed her aside, as if she were a mere chick. Under the destructive force of the thunder in his palm, the priestess's face was instantly covered in blood. It was a gruesome sight. Not a single inch of her skin remained intact after that brutal contact. Even her eyes had vanished in the onslaught, leaving her to face whatever comes in the next life. Ju snorted coldly, telling her not to be so arrogant as he took another step forward. He reached her with unstoppable force, raising his hand for a final palm strike to finish her off. If he were still at the intermediate stage of 4 connections, he might have needed his strongest form to win. But after ascending to 5 connections, a simple practitioner of ancestral martial arts is just someone to be casually slaughtered. Stop. At that precise moment, the monk Jume finally reacted to the chaos unfolding before him. Suddenly, he let out a furious cry, his entire body glowing with a golden light as he struck out with his palm, launching 3 brilliant golden imprints. They bombarded Huahu with everything he had. A fatal blow, an instant death, or so he hoped. But how could this be happening? We see that the monk Jume no longer possessed even a shred of his previous carefree attitude. In this moment, he stared at Huahu, his face completely twisted with a newfound terror. Then, without uttering a single word, he turned around and fled at the highest speed he could muster. As an innate practitioner of ancestral martial arts, he had a few tricks left up his sleeve. He could briefly suspend himself in the air, rising 20 or 30 meters as he soared toward the sky. He was just about to make his escape when Huahu looked up and commanded him to stay. The thunder in his palm condensed into a crackling spear of lightning, aimed directly at the fleeing monk Jume. The lightning spear tore through the sky, and, in the blink of an eye, it was right behind the monk. No, Jume turned his head, his face filled with horror as he realized he was trapped within the grounds. The monk remained stuck in the hall, unable to find a way out of the situation he had helped create. There was nothing to be done against the lightning. It collided with his defensive mark, which resisted for less than 2 seconds before shattering. With a sickening sound, the thunder that broke the mark pierced through Jume's heart with unstoppable force. He spat out a mouthful of blood as his body plummeted from a height of more than 10 meters. He died right there, his body still convulsing and coughing up blood in his final moments. It was truly an astonishing display, witnessing the sheer, raw strength of Hu with one's own eyes. Her mouth hung slightly open in shock, as if she were meeting the real Ju for the very first time. Zhao laughed wildly, shouting that the boss was truly powerful, and honestly, who could argue with that? He thought to himself that he should simply kill them all, these ignorant, arrogant, and utterly useless people. It had been such a clean elimination, a display of dominance and raw strength that left no room for doubt. Witnessing it made everyone present feel a surge of extreme, almost overwhelming excitement. "Boss, our location has been exposed," Zhao noted, his voice cutting through the adrenaline of the moment. "Should we move out immediately?" Zhao asked with a serious expression as he stepped forward to consult his leader. We see that Zhao was right to worry. After all, they had just taken down 2 practitioners of ancestral martial arts. Tensions with the Empire were already high, and this latest development had only made matters much worse. The Empire might try to ignore this place, despite the 50 survivors and General Lin's direct missile coverage. Because of your personal grudges, you have killed 2 ancient martial arts practitioners from the geopolitical group. You really are something. Ju looked up at the sky, certain that his opponent was watching via satellite. And then, he spoke coldly to the empty air, reminding them that there were over 50 survivors in this school. "If you want to treat human lives like mere straw," he challenged, "then go ahead and drop your bombs." Deep down, Ju wanted to see if his opponent truly dared to be that heartless. Damn it, how could he possibly be this strong? The question echoed in the halls of power. Lin Jingxiao was indeed watching through a satellite feed, listening intently to Ju's provocation. His eyes were bloodshot as he ground his teeth in a fury so intense it looked as if his eyes might burst. This was a new generation satellite, capable of transmitting not just clear images, but perfectly accurate sound as well. In that moment, Lin Jingxiao desperately wanted to order an immediate strike, but he simply didn't dare. If there were no survivors down there, he would have given the order without a single moment's hesitation. But even if he gave the order now, every officer present would surely stand against him. General Yizong Wochensen spoke up, suggesting that the general should report this entire situation to the Sangdu geopolitical group. This had clearly become something they could no longer resolve on their own, leaving them with only one path forward. Lin Jingxiao let out a helpless sigh and instructed his aide to report to Sangdu immediately, sending all the video footage along with it. He insisted he wasn't seeking personal revenge, but rather that this monster would become a great calamity for humanity if he wasn't stopped. The aide left for the school, but we see there was really nothing to be done. The situation was simply beyond their control. It was then that the Minister of Satellites, Lin Mingjiao, decided to weigh in on the matter. She noted that even innate ancient martial arts practitioners were proving to be no match for this demon dragon. The head of the information department disagreed, suggesting that the situation wasn't quite as outrageous as it seemed. From what he understood, those practitioners were only at the early innate stage, hardly the peak of their power. He believed that if 2 peak innate masters were to arrive, they should be able to deal with him quite easily. After realizing that Hu Hiju was also human, the others didn't actually feel much hostility toward him anymore. After all, he didn't massacre common people, nor did he kill those with superpowers without a very good reason. It was those fanatical superpowered individuals who had provoked him and, in the end, met their inevitable demise. And yet, Lin Zhengxiao continued to cling to the matter, desperate to seek personal vengeance for his grandson. Everyone present, despite being high-ranking figures, couldn't ignore the reality of what those 2 practitioners and Lin Zhengxiao had done. They had set out to kill Hu Hiju, and now they had to face the fact that they had failed, miserably. When Shiminsi received the news back at the shelter, she found herself in a state of complete and utter disbelief. She looked at the handsome man in the suit standing before her, trying to process the weight of his words. She wondered if that guy could truly stand his ground against the most powerful holders of humanity's strength. Could he really face those with innate ancestral artifacts? Well, as it turns out, he did much more than just face them. In fact, those 2 possessors of innate ancestral artifacts weren't just defeated, they were killed. The handsome man in the suit simply shook his head at the gravity of the situation. He told her, "Min 11, you have betrayed that monster." He warned her that if the creature didn't die, she would find herself in grave danger. He apologized for putting her at risk. We see that this man is actually Chu Min 11's first love. It was precisely for him that Chu Min 11 had done all of this, for Chun. He reassured her that it didn't matter, as the geocentric group would certainly never let him live. No matter how strong he becomes after causing such a scene, CEO Chu might even intervene personally. He is certain the man will die, and surprisingly, Chu Min 11 remains perfectly calm. She remarked that although he is human, he has become something entirely anti-human. She agreed he would definitely die, showing that she holds very little true loyalty toward He Wihyu. At that time, she had only been acting under the duress of He Wihyu's invincible strength. She was merely yielding for the moment, especially since learning the Qianlong Empire still has its geocentric group. Knowing there are powerful ancestral warriors who can kill that man, she had no intention of returning. It seems the human heart has always been a fickle thing, which, in this world, is hardly a surprise. Lin Yichin nodded in approval, noting that it didn't matter if she was forced, and mentioned his mother wanted to see her. He told her to come along, as his mother is none other than the Minister of Satellites, Lin Mangio. And so we reach chapter 26, where the question is asked, do you really want to use me as a guinea pig? I'm afraid you won't live long enough to try, he thought, as the clock struck 8:30. High above, we see two moons in the sky, silently orbiting the vast continent of New Lawn. No one truly knows where that extra moon came from. Even the Department of Astronomy has been unable to uncover anything concrete. They have only managed to form a vague, unanimous suspicion. It is thought the original moon might hold evidence of restricting humanity's awakening and development. And this new moon, it seems to be restricting the deployment of the former. Of course, all of this is mere speculation, as these things often are. With current technology, it is temporarily impossible for humanity to reach a clear conclusion. The night is now as dark as ink. Even as monsters continue to roam through the streets of Sandhu, we move now to the conference hall of the Geocentric Group building. Su Yuan sat in the main seat, staring expressionlessly at the person in front of him. On the video screen, we see 4 people seated around a long table. There are 2 elders at the peak of the Grandmaster realm, Lao Yu, and a beautiful middle-aged woman in a Taoist robe. This woman in the Taoist robe considers CZ to be absolute scum. As she watched the video of He Wei-Hu massacring her disciples from Longyan Mountain, her gaze turned cold. She noted silently that CZ's real name is He Wei-Hu. He was an orphan from the Lin County Orphanage in Yun City. She repeated the name He Wei-Hu to herself, thinking of his mother, Su Yuan. Su Yuan was the first woman to ever take a seat at that long table. And so, the man known as CZ was revealed to be He Wei-Hu. We cannot rule out this possibility. I have gathered you all tonight to discuss how we should deal with CZ. Please, share your opinions with the group. Grandmaster Lao Yu spoke up, noting that in this post-apocalyptic world, it wasn't entirely unreasonable for him to kill a few superhumans who viewed him as a monster. Since he hadn't massacred ordinary people, Lao Yu suggested they could perhaps afford to be lenient. And what about Lin Xingzhao's grandson? Is he not an ordinary person? The female Grandmaster scoffed and fired back, asking how he dared to kill her disciples from Longyan Mountain. She declared she wouldn't let it go, but Grandmaster He Hui shook his head and told Madame Zhan it simply wasn't necessary. In his view, the entire incident had been nothing more than passive self-defense. And whose fault is that, Elder He? Elder Yu, could it be that you two are trying to win CZ over to your side? Grandmaster Lu Duan let out a contemptuous sneer, remarking that CZ possessed a dark and dangerous personality. He warned that if they didn't kill him now, there would be endless trouble in the future. I am merely stating the facts as they are. Ultimately, everything is subject to Chairman Chu's final decision. He Hui snorted coldly and looked toward Chu Yuan, choosing to say nothing more. The beautiful woman in the palace dress, Lao Yu, Li Hong, and Lu Duan all waited in silence. Every eye in the room turned to Chu Yuan, who noted that as the person in charge of the D Yuan group, he had to maintain an open mind. Is it truly essential to kill CZ? Chu Yuan asked, his deep gaze shifting between Lu Duan and the lady in the palace robes. The two of them nodded firmly in agreement, though Chu Yuan privately believed the man was better suited for research. Chu Yuan spoke slowly, suggesting that CZ must have successfully resisted the Gebian mutation. If they could investigate him thoroughly, they might find a way to transfer Gebian genes into ordinary people, a chilling thought, to be sure. When that moment finally arrives, every citizen of our empire will be ready to head off to war. Upon hearing these words, we see the eyes of Lu Duan and the other 4 light up with a faint, calculating glimmer. They say in unison that Chu Yuan is, indeed, thinking much further ahead than any of them. If they could truly extract a sample of Gebian-resistant genes from him, the benefits would be staggering. Chu Yuan nods slightly, noting that since none of them have any objections, the plan is set. He orders them to send out several experts at the peak of the innate level. He tells them to bring CZ to him, which, in his mind, is exactly how things should be. The 4 of them nod, and shortly after, with the order issued by the D Yuan group, the gears of war begin to turn. The D Yuan group selects 4 peak innate level experts for the task. Under the cover of night, they travel toward Yunshun in combat helicopters. It isn't that they are inherently cruel, but if anyone else were in Chu Yuan's position and encountered such a rare specimen, they would surely think of capturing him for research. This is the simple cruelty of their world, where being right is often a matter of perspective. We return to Yunshun, where Hu Hui is standing on the rooftop of the high school's administration building. He gazes out at the vastness of the night and exhales softly, lost in thought. He is no fool, of course. He is very much aware of the precarious situation he finds himself in. He knows that once the Empire finds out about him, he will undoubtedly become a mere guinea pig in their eyes. He has no intention of making enemies, but unfortunately, he must devour a 6th-level being this very night. He tells himself that if they want to use him as a lab rat, they are going to be sorely disappointed. Hu Hui's gaze turns fierce, reflecting a newfound and dangerous resolve. By tomorrow, he must also seize exclusive control of a Gebian tree. Faced with the powerful driving force of humanity's evolution, Hugh Hui feels a certain amount of pressure himself. He takes out his mobile phone, adds mutation on Agaway chat, and attaches a rather direct message. He offers one last chance: accept the request and hand over the shelter, or be killed when he inevitably takes it by force. At this stage, he truly needs a secure foothold exactly like that one. Since Yunshin is near the water, the Yun River will soon be teeming with mutated sea monsters crawling onto the land. After sending the message, Hugh Hui moves with a series of rapid flashes. He disappears into the night, having told Hibiya and the others to rest well instead of scavenging, preparing them for a future frenzy. Shortly after, we see a massive iron gate over a meter high being forced open with sheer strength. It is an incredibly difficult task, to be honest, but these are the only measures left to take. On this particular night, any kind of high-level mutation is a target. Hugh Hui devours everything in his path, not even letting the phantom transformation creatures escape his reach. In the depths of the darkness, Hugh Hui has truly become the ultimate hunter. Upon reaching the 5th Street, he can already sense the presence of high-level mutated creatures within range. He even senses the distinct, chilling energy of phantom transformation creatures nearby. It is now past 4 in the morning, and after devouring another phantom creature, he reaches the peak of the 5th Street. Suddenly, a violent roar echoes from a distant community, a roar signaling a breakthrough in power. Hugh Hui lets a peculiar smile slip onto the corner of his mouth when he hears that sound. His guess was correct. Muchin had already managed to lure that silver-backed gorilla king. Immediately, he sets off toward the source of the noise at his maximum speed. Hugh Hui still has a plan to infiltrate the shelter by using Mamba and the gorilla king to draw Muchin out. On this particular night, he had been searching specifically for Mamba and the silver-backed gorilla king. As mutated creatures, they would almost certainly be out hunting under the cover of darkness. If he could somehow subdue them, gaining entry to Muchin Hui's shelter would become a far simpler task. Upon reaching the community, Muchin Hui spots a massive gorilla standing over 2 zhang tall. The beast is currently being besieged and hunted by 4 gray phantom transformation creatures. Deep wounds reaching all the way to the bone cover its robust body, with blood flowing freely from every gash. The silverback gorilla king had fled this far, but he simply couldn't outrun the phantom creatures in the dark. Damn it all, the heavens want to destroy me, the gorilla king roared in desperation. He beat his chest repeatedly, a final, defiant display of strength against his attackers. If he were facing only 1 or 2 of these phantom creatures, he might have had the strength to fight back. But against 4 of them attacking in unison, he found it nearly impossible to resist. By now, Hugh Hui's reputation had already spread among the circles of the Givian creatures. To encounter him and not flee immediately meant only one thing: certain death. The moment the Pipa began to scatter, Hugh Hui's violent figure lunged forward. He instantly overtakes the Gorilla King and gives chase, intent on devouring a Givian creature. Compared to taking 20 or 30 of them at once, this was a different matter entirely. Even if it were just a single fruit, Hugh Hui was hardly the type to let them escape his grasp. He draws the Thunder Dragon sword and rapidly pursues one of the Givian creatures. A powerful strike pierces its chest, and without missing a beat, he sets off after the next one. His speed is so immense that it borders on the unnatural, which, to be honest, is exactly what we expected. We see only a flicker of black lightning as he suddenly materializes behind the Givian creature. The beast wanted to beg for mercy, but just as it opened its mouth, Hugh Hui took its head with a single sword strike. To kill and to devour, those were the only thoughts occupying Hugh Hui's mind at this moment. The pressure exerted by the ancient martial artist was simply too great for him to consider anything else. The silverback gorilla could only watch, his jaw dropping at such a display of raw power. He was utterly stupefied. In less than a minute, Hugh Hui held 2 Givian creatures while the dragons on his back claimed 2 more. Our protagonist then stepped out from the darkness, walking calmly toward the silver-backed gorilla. "Great boss, please, have mercy on me," the creature pleaded. Terrified, the silver-backed gorilla fell to his knees, desperately begging for his life. His massive, robust body was trembling violently, a sight that was, to be honest, quite pathetic. Hugh Hui tossed the Givian corpses to the ground and commanded his twin dragons to begin their feast. His cold gaze settled on the gorilla, but his tone shifted slightly when he mentioned the name Yuan Su. "Do you know her? Do you know her?" he asked, his voice echoing with a dangerous intensity. The gorilla could do nothing but nod repeatedly, his eyes wide and filled with pure, unadulterated fear. To him, the man standing there killed Givian creatures like one might slaughter chickens, and he feared he was next on the menu. It is a harsh world. After all, even among these creatures, devouring one another is simply a part of daily life. For the lucky Givian creatures, even an ordinary one can eventually rise to become a supreme lord. Hugh Hui nodded and asked if the gorilla could enter and leave that specific shelter whenever he pleased. "Yes, if the great boss wishes to enter, I can take you there myself," the creature replied eagerly. And so, the gorilla remained bowed before Hugh Hui, terrified of the calamity that had just spared him. In this moment, you are like an obedient little kitten, Hu Hui remarked, observing the creature's sudden submission. Very well, I am going to take that shelter for myself. I will wait in the distance. See to it that they open the door. As he spoke, Hu Hui allowed a grotesque, chilling smile to spread across his face. He thought of Mu and Su, since she seemed so intent on seeking out her own death. Hu Mo would be more than happy to oblige her immediately, even without Sin Wanalaga to assist. Yes, I also believe that only you, great boss, are truly qualified to occupy that shelter, the gorilla replied. Late 4th level. It seems you have devoured quite a lot this evening, Hu Hui noted, assessing the beast. Compared to you, great boss, this humble servant is still very far behind. Sin Wan smiled flatteringly, mentioning he still needed a few more demonic creatures to ascend to the 6th level. 5:30. We will meet outside the shelter at that time. Here are 4 Givian fruits. Take them to recover from your wounds. And so, Hu Hui handed over his 4 remaining Givian fruits to the massive creature. After that, he slipped back into the shadows and vanished as quickly as he had appeared. We should remember that Givian fruits are fleeting. They can only exist for 24 hours. Once that time expires, they simply wither away, which, naturally, makes them quite a precious resource. Thank you, great boss. From now on, I will follow you with the utmost care. Sin Wan shouted his gratitude toward the darkness where Hu Hui had just disappeared. He had not only escaped certain death, but had also obtained 4 rare Givian fruits in the process. Sin Wan was understandably thrilled. His loyalty to Hu Hui was now, quite literally, unparalleled. Chapter 27. The young panda joins the fray. Assault on the shelter. It is the 3rd day of the end of the world, just after 5 in the morning. We see the twin moons gradually fading away into the summer sky. Dawn is about to break, and a combat helicopter flies toward the Yunshin shelter, just like last time. Lin Xingxiao brings the high-ranking officials of Yunshin to welcome the new arrivals. For people descend from the helicopter, an old man, a middle-aged man, a woman in her 30s, and a younger woman. They were supposed to have arrived earlier, but they encountered many insects along the way. It was an attack by mutant creatures, including several disaster-level insect emperors of the 4th and 5th levels. A full night of fighting caused their delay, which, to be honest, is quite understandable given the circumstances. Where is the demon dragon? The elderly leader asked coldly, without waiting for Lin Xingxiao to speak. Lin Xingxiao responded to the old man with a face full of deep respect. He informed them they were at the high school in Yun, asking if they wished to go there immediately. Upon hearing this, the woman simply took out her mobile phone. She began locating the high school in Yun City, not bothering to give Lin Xingxiao an answer. Located, let's go, she said, and with that, the matter was settled. They left immediately, without sparing a single glance for these so-called officials of Yun City. Their mission, after all, is to capture the demon dragon alive. Being polite to these people was never part of the plan, and Lin Xingxiao watched them leave without daring to show any dissatisfaction. Instead, they returned to the station lobby to use the satellite to capture the scene at the high school. At the same time, we find that the Sanjin Geoscience Group is also sharing their satellite vision. Led by Chu Yuan, the beautiful woman in work clothes, Lu Duan, He Rue, Yu Lion, and the others have spent the entire night cultivating after consuming the Gibian fruit. And now, we see them all gathered here, observing the remarkable effects the Gibian fruit has had on their bodies. The impact is truly significant, especially considering Chu Yuan was originally only at the early Great Master stage. But after refining hundreds of Gibian fruits throughout the night, she found herself right on the verge of breaking through to the middle stage. Meanwhile, Lu Duan and the other 4, who were already peak Great Masters, can feel themselves about to enter the realm of the Grand Master. At the same time, we return to the central mansion of the shelter, where Mu Qingxue is waiting inside the lobby. Mu Qingxue has also received the satellite projection feed from Yun City, and is currently with Su Hongwu. Su Beixian, Su Ying, and 3 Super Saint warriors are all watching the feed intently. What Wen Ran doesn't know, however, is that He Hui Hui has already arrived just outside the shelter. At the Great Prison, upon seeing He Hui Hui emerging from the darkness, the man waiting for the new emperor stepped forward, looking very excited, which, in this world, is rarely a good sign.